Oh, oh dear.
Now it should work. There we go.
Now, is it working now?
Yep. Welcome everybody, to the NWO pre-show. We have,
Oh
of
my god,
course,
why is my face so huge? Okay, I'll sort this out. You don't have to sort this out, I'll sort this out.
Okay. Well, McLeod resizes himself.
Yeah.
So apologies. Last week, of course, was a busy week. This week is turning into a very busy week still. For those that are unaware, I work in emergency management, and shit happens. Rest in peace, Florida. Is what it is. So naturally, that took a ton of time. Tonight, I have some free time. We may have to delay next week's show due to ongoing issues and stuff like that, but we will see what happens. Keep an eye on the Discord for updated news on that. Because that's a fluid situation, as I'm not going to do a 12-hour shift of work on the same day that I do the show, because frankly, you guys deserve better than that. And of course, if I come out of work after a 12-hour day at work, then do a 3-hour long show, I no longer have enough time to eat, wake up, walk the dog, and go back to work the next day.
Yeah.
To do it all again. So, is what it is. I want to thank everybody for showing up, continuing to show up. It's been, of course, a pretty awesome time. We've been around in the New World community for God knows how long at this point, and it's always great to continue to have the support out there.
Yeah. Oh wait, what did I do? I didn't mean to do that.
Mean to do what?
There we go. I clicked something accidentally.
Smooth.
Lilith, you are fine.
Smooth. This is why we can't have nice things.
That was I'm sorry for that. I was trying to get rid of this like Twitch drop kind of like little thing going on, and like it just Twitch UI interaction leaves a bit to be desired. I'm sorry about that.
Yes. So, we of course have a number of interesting topics for the show tonight. The show tonight will be only New World. We are changing up the model in which we operate when it comes to the show. We tried something new for several months where we covered New World, Star Citizen, and Lost Ark all in the same show. The shows started to get to the point where they were about 4 hours long, and
it's getting ridiculous.
We were getting exhausted by the end of it. Not that we don't like covering Star Citizen, or not that we don't like covering Lost Ark, but based on all of the metrics and everything else, those are better served in a YouTube content instead of in a live content platform. And we feel that the NWO show can return specifically to New World, and we're gonna start hammering down on some new opportunities on the YouTube and YouTube Shorts side of things. So keep an eye out for that post hurricane season, probably. So yeah, a few good things coming down the pipe. Fresh start coming or not. I mean, so there is an official announcement later this week.
Yeah, we were literally talking about it like before the show started, in regards to like, has there been an announcement that we haven't seen? Has there been somebody who's maybe said something that they shouldn't have in some way, somewhere? But like at the moment, it's very, very quiet and on the Fresh Starts server kind of announcements. But there is, as as he says, like an announcement of an announcement. So
Yes.
read into that
So
what you will.
the reality is, a company would not drop this many hints about a major announcement like Fresh Starts, specifically talking about Fresh Starts, then collecting questions from the people, and then going, there's going to be an announcement on Fresh Starts, you know, and obviously they're generating a lot of hype. So that being the case, uh, it is what it is. This
Mhm.
is going to be like there is. I'm going to call it now. There are going to be Fresh Start servers.
I mean,
Simply put,
it's
like,
if there weren't, then they're playing they're playing with like the entire community's heartstrings, right?
yeah,
Because like if there wasn't going to be Fresh Start servers, they would have like nipped it in the bud really, really quickly, and they would have they would have said like, no, no, there is no Fresh Start servers, etc., etc. We're not planning it in any way, shape, or form. Blah 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 blah. But they haven't. They literally haven't been saying that kind of thing. Although they haven't been saying that there definitely is. They've been collecting a lot of information, a lot of feedback about it, and so yeah, like we collectively think that there are
yes.
um,
So I think
probably coming
there's
with.
one of the biggest questions is when. And
Yeah.
the short way to answer that is at bare minimum. Hey, thanks for the sub.
Cheers,
At
mate.
bare minimum, the Fresh Start servers won't come until Brimstone Sands launches on the 18th.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is multiple different reasons, but the biggest is that the new player experience that's currently on the PTR um, is a substantially better experience in terms of leveling, and is going to increase retention. And of course, they want to increase retention because they want people to keep playing the game. Also, a ton of people starting the game from scratch and adding a bunch of end game content is, of course, a great way to kind of bring people in and keep them involved in the game for a really long time. Um,
Yeah.
you know, there are going to be people who are level 60 within a few days. Like, you know, yeah, yeah. Everyone's waiting for Fresh Start servers, not the expansion.
I mean, I
There's a
get
lot of
it.
us
I
that are
do get
looking
it.
forward to Brimstone Sands, but like, there is a comical amount of people that are like, okay, now that New World has kind of had its growing pains, this is the opportunity to come back, fresh start, so that you get the like launch day vibe of like, okay,
Yeah.
hey, we everybody's equal. I'm not going against somebody who's got 3,000 hours played, who's got best in slot items for every different class. Um, you know, they're just you feel like there's the competition is open. It's one of the reasons why Rust is still successful is that after every wipe, there is that element of fairness. I don't feel like I'm, dramatically behind these guys. And then
Yeah.
naturally you fall behind the no lifers, and within a few days it's really no different. But you know,
But you get that you get that initial kind of moment where you're like, I'm not too far behind.
yeah. And the reality here is that it's a really good opportunity for them to do this. And one of the other things regarding um, most MMOs, I do agree it is very difficult to get players to return. Um, However, most MMOs have a subscription fee,
Yeah.
and New World does not. So for the low price of 30 or $40, or if it's on sale, there have been people who picked it up for as low as 20. Um, you know, it is a steal. You know, like you compare the
Hmm.
amount of hours that you put into this versus the amount of hours you put into Assassin's Creed. You're gonna get more time out of this. You're gonna get more fun out of this. Uh, I enjoy Assassin's Creed games. Don't get me wrong. I am playing Black Flag on my PlayStation frequently. So uh,
Hmm.
but at the same time, we expect MMOs to be pretty big. So when do we expect fresh start service? Uh, at least after Brimstone Sands launches. Like it could be as early
Yeah.
as when Brimstone Sands launches on the 18th, or potentially a little bit later. I doubt it's going to be later because it's going to be a shitload of people coming back, and they're all going to want a place to go. And it's got to be part. I think it's got to be part of the server expansion plan uh, for the release. Like it has to be.
I mean, I would imagine it to be like
Yeah.
I would expect the fresh start servers to be coming with Brimstone, unless they have such a lot of work to do, like such a lot of work, technically, and for their sort of like their engineers to do to release Brimstone, that like they can't deal with fresh start servers alongside all the regular servers that they might need to spin up as well.
Um,
I don't know,
and
like
I
it might be
feel like it
that it.
should be like for fresh start servers. I feel like it should be relatively easy. Like
Yeah.
the from a coding perspective, basically the only limitation that you're looking to do is this server no longer accepts, which they already have. So like if a server's full, it will no longer accept a combination of new players or transfers, and those are coded as two different things
Yeah.
for a reason. Um, and ballpark wise, functionally speaking, uh, it's really not difficult to sit there and be like, okay, fresh start servers, all you're doing is eliminating the option of characters to transfer to the server.
Yeah.
And that's it. It only allows new character creation. And of course, characters that are, like once you start a character on that server, then you can obviously log into a character on that server, but you can't, like, I can't take my main from Valhalla and be like, YOLO, let's do this, Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, there's a ton of people that are like, well, within 2 weeks, it's going to be the same as the other ones, but it's not. You know,
Nope.
it took in the ballpark of about 2.5 to 3 months for the majority of people to make it through the leveling process. And I know that there are people out there who are like, but it only took me a couple of days. Yes, you probably have more time than the average bear. Like,
Hmm.
if
Typically.
you can play 16 hours a day, you are going to come very far ahead of the people that are going to only play 2 hours a week. And if you compare the leveling experience at launch, where we were all kind of going to the same places, doing kind of the same missions, and there was always that opportunity to complete a mission with support from other people who were leveling. Uh, that was fun. Nowadays, that has dropped off dramatically. Oftentimes, you're doing it alone, so it makes it a lot more. It's a much different experience. This is going to change that, uh, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I actually look
Yeah, it
forward
should
to
be.
starting a
It should
character on a
be.
fresh start server. I'm not. Now, here's the other thing. Uh, there's a miscommunication out there that some people think that fresh start servers are something that they're not. To clarify
Oh.
what a fresh start server is and what the community has been asking for, a fresh start server is just this: a new server, brand new, that does not accept transfers of older players. There will be servers that they start up that you can transfer to, because with a ton of people coming back, they're going to have to transfer people off of those servers and bring them over to other ones. Otherwise, there's going to be comically long queues.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Uh,
we've had like over the last 3 or 4 months, like we've had like a significant amounts of like server mergers, to the point where like I think there's 1 or 2 regions where that literally only have one server now. There is a choice of one, that is it. Whereas at launch they had 6, 12, like some places had like, I mean, some places had like 2 dozen, like it was kind of crazy.
um,
So yeah, it's
Now, to the people that are like, oh no, what are how are we going to counter, uh, are like there are people that are upset about fresh start servers, and
I mean,
there's a couple of reasons that they're upset. One, they don't understand what they are in some cases, whereas there are people out there who think that fresh start servers means we're going to wipe everybody's progress. Of course not.
no.
You know how many do
See,
you know how many people
so
would quit if that happened? Like,
this
there
is the
would be so
thing.
many that would be like, all of my efforts in vain. Like, this is stupid. And just leave.
See, this is the thing. The thing is, like, those sorts of people, the people who are getting angry at like the thought that they're going to like Aegis is going to be wiping people's progress, are the people who have been told about fresh start servers in the sense of, oh yeah, they're doing fresh start servers, kind of like Rust when Rust kind of does the monthly reset thing. That's kind of what they're doing. Like, I can imagine that being the conversation that like happens between those two people, and then they're going like, holy fucking shit, all my stuff, all of my progress, etc., is going to get wiped by AGS. It's like, no, you're going off hearsay that some complete idiot is passing over to you.
Mhm.
Like, stop, actually go and read what has been posted, or come to a channel like this, channel like us, that actually puts out the actual truth, the actual kind of verbatim announcements and stuff like that, and get yourself acclimatized to what's actually going to be happening, rather than just rando hearsay.
Exactly. Like, I'd like to think that as a channel, like, we do a pretty decent job of covering the news, and like, we have historically been very accurate when it comes to predicting what's actually going to happen. For those that don't know, this channel has existed. Small bits
Yeah.
of history here. First, New World launched a year ago. This channel has been covering New World content for 2 years. And
Yeah.
on top of that,
And
McLeod and I have been in the community for New World for at least a year and a half before that. So,
yeah, and we were debating whether starting up this channel like for about 6 months prior to when we actually
yeah,
did, because we were like, oh no, we shouldn't start it too early. We should probably start it close to actually when the launch happens.
yeah,
And then, as anybody who knows or was like either keeping up with how the launch was going, yeah, it got pushed back and back and back a few times, and probably for good reason in many different ways, considering the situations that were going on in the world.
yeah. So all told, we have a very different perspective than most people that play the game. Because most people that play the
Yeah,
game were exposed to it for the open beta and stuff like that. Great. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. We have a different perspective in that we have several additional years of watching what AGS does, and seeing their internal announcements in the NDA alphas and stuff like that, and being able to go, okay, hey, when they start hinting at something, like, they're a very professional company. They're not going to
mm,
play on people and be like, oh yeah, let's generate a shitload of hype about this new item, and then drop a bombshell, and be like, actually, we're not doing that. Like,
yeah,
I would expect something like that out of, like, CCP games, you know. Uh, but Amazon has given no indication in their entire history that they would, you know, take this on and then not do it.
yeah,
So now there is another thought in terms of, like, the timeline for this. There is a possibility that fresh start servers might not come with Brimstone sets. It might come a little later. With the idea being, uh, let's make sure that there's no bugs, there's no dupes. Let's hammer things out and then go that route. That's a possibility. They could go that route.
yeah.
Uh,
There's a bit of logic to that, to be fair. Like, making sure that there's the dupes don't, any dupes that could potentially have been accidentally sort of included into the code in some way, shape, or form, or whatever, like code that causes some scenario where you can potentially dupe items. Like you do want to kind of get rid of those if before you actually, be really confident about like not having those in the code or like, finding them and removing them before fresh start servers happen because like, oh my god, I swear like dupes are they're like the boogeyman for New World.
Yes. And naturally it would be really hard to bring people back all of a sudden to have the same problems that they had around launch. And,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
one of the reasons that people are interested in possibly coming back here for fresh start servers is that there were, and those of us that play the game regularly know that this really isn't a problem. There's this impression that the economy is bad and that, you're fighting
yeah,
against, tainted gold, and we know that that's not the case. We know that they've done a really good job of clearing out duplicated items and duplicated gold. Like, it's really not an issue that, it's not the issue that people think it is. But sometimes perception is reality.
yeah, yeah,
And if there is a large enough player base that's sitting there saying, I want to come back, but I don't want to go against what I feel is a lot of X, Y, and Z, you know, then
hmm
who are they to blame? Who are we to stop them from just going? This is really no different than just starting up a new server. The only functional difference to this is that I can't transfer my normal character there.
yeah,
So like, it doesn't impact me in the slightest. It's not like these people are gonna. It's not when Brimstone Sands launches. It's not like these people are going to be able to transfer to Valhalla anyways. So they're not going to be able to start new characters on Valhalla and etc. And here's the hard truth for people who are playing right now. If you have the opportunity to log in right now and you know that your server has connected to or has been merged together with a bunch of other servers, and you have some of the server transfer tokens still available from earlier on in the process when they gave away two to everybody since launch, uh, for those that bought since, like, sorry, you're probably gonna have to buy one, but now would be a fucking phenomenal time to transfer off of that server. Like, hard stop. You need to contemplate right now whether or not you want to stay on a server that potentially has 25 other servers merged into it. And what happens when all of those people, maybe not all of them, a large chunk of those people return. The
yeah,
server size is only 2,500, and almost all of those servers were close to full. So if 25 servers merged into one, that's 2.5 or 2,000 people concurrent on each. You know, you do the math, it's not pretty. That
yeah.
queue
The
is going
queues
to
are
be
not pretty on that one.
colossal.
Yeah,
And if you're like, oh, well, I don't want to move because I'm going to miss my friends. Your friends, you should be talking to your friends right now, going, hey, it might be a good
we,
idea for us to move to one of these new servers that are just opening up.
yeah, exactly.
Like pre Brimstone Sands. Like,
Yeah, yeah. But
this
like,
is this is going to be a really big problem.
yeah. Like Zunny, like yeah, we do appreciate that that these servers have been added like a few weeks ago, but like what we're talking about is basically people who think that they are fine with just sticking on the server that they've been merged into, rolling up into the Brimstone Sands update. Like if you think that that's going to be completely fine, then like you need to kind of come to a sudden realization that 25 or so servers trying to like all merge in or all jump into the queue into one server is not going to work.
Mhm.
Like and you should probably preempt a move with your friends to one of those new servers that you're talking about.
Now, here's the other thing. The people that have come back, like the reason currently that they've expanded and they've added new servers is that the player base has started to return. These are people that are coming back to prepare for Brimstone Sands. When Brimstone Sands launches, expect the server or expect the population to spike. This happens
Hmm.
in every game.
Yep.
Absolutely every game. Anytime you have a major expansion and a very low bar of re-entry, i.e., there is no subscription, it costs you nothing. If you already bought the game, you might as well come back and play the new stuff. There's nothing stopping you. From there, like when that happens, there are going to be a lot more people trying to get onto the servers that do exist, and they're going to need to spread out.
Yeah.
And from there, I want like I'm going to say this because this is really important because it's going to be like people are going to be like, "Oh, New World's dying again." How this works, and I'm gonna use Destiny 2 as an example.
Okay.
Uh,
Hmm.
I need to show you guys that this happens in games all of the fucking time. Um, so this is Destiny 2, SteamDB. SteamDB tracks all concurrent users active in a game that have the game client open. So right now in Destiny, there are 67,000 people playing the game, almost 68. Uh, and today's peak was 93,000. So what happens is the game releases, the numbers go down because there is never a perfect retention rate. This happens in literally every single goddamn game. Like, and this is like some of them are worse than others. Just putting that out there. Some of them have a worse retention rate than others. Some of them have worse launches than others. Nobody out there is saying that the New World launch was great. Like, I think people would say, "Hey, the current New World client is actually pretty good. It's much better than it has been in a very long time." So like, we're off to
Yeah.
the races. But when they release new content, this is a release. This is a content release. This is a content release. This is a content release. And you see these numbers spike with the different seasons and content releases, and then they go back down. This is going to mean that when New World spikes back up, it could spike up to 150, 200,000. Shit, it could spike really high. Like we don't know how many people are going to come back. We just don't. The number of people pre-patch. So like, let's look at Beyond Light here. We're gonna zoom in on this. I need to zoom further out than that. Um, so pre-patch, you see this like can't point to it because it's gonna cover it up, but like you see this several day swing of new players coming in before the patch. That's not uncommon, you know. And of course, Destiny, there's less to prepare for because you don't need supplies, you don't need to like level up weapons or stuff like that. Like there's a little bit less to it than a game like New World. But you get that spike of new players, and then it starts dropping off as people play the new content and get tired of it. They're going to play it, they're going to run through it all, then they're going to go to other games again. This is going to be the same thing that happens to New World. Like, I want people to be prepared for that inevitability of it's going to spike again. There's going to be a lot of buzz, and then the server merging stuff is going to start happening again. That's very, very normal. Now, so that everybody can see it, we'll go to New World. Now, New World's release and the decline holds level, and then it just kind of like levels off. And we were down under 20 for a while, almost to 15,000, and then recently, over the last couple of months, we've had this increase, and it's players that are returning and getting more and more better press, and having videos from Asmongold, having videos from Lazy Peon, having videos from all of these major creators that are like, hey, actually the game's really in a good place. And with Brimstone Sands coming up, you really should look to get your characters ready for the new endgame content, which we all know takes a little while with the expertise system. You're going to need to grind for a bit. For those that haven't hit 60, like you're going to need to grind and hit 60 because it is end game content. Like you need to at least be on that on that grind at that point to get be able to play it. So you're still going
Yeah,
to be able to
like
play the game. You're
there's
just not going to really want to be in Brimstone Sands as an area. Um,
well, you're gonna have to run through certain quests to be able to enter Brimstone,
yeah,
and I think those are gated at 60, I think,
I think so. Yeah.
or gated somewhere like that.
So simply put, like expect that to happen. Like this isn't an abnormal thing, and like I want to preempt this idea that like the player numbers going down isn't always a bad thing. It just means that players came back, had fun, and maybe they played all the new content, they played the new expedition, they played they leveled up the great sword, played some OPR and all that, and then went, hey, this was fun, but I like this other game. You know, uh, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like the nice thing about New World is there's no subscription fees, so there's no like um sunken cost fallacy that like I have to keep playing this because I've invested so much money in it. One of the most relieving things that I ever did was quit EVE Online. You know,
Yeah.
like it has saved me an immeasurable amount of money by leaving EVE, and I've changed it out for playing uh, games like New World. Now, one could argue that I've also thrown what would have gone into EVE into Star Citizen, but that's a whole different other problem. You know,
Kind of feel like you
that's
were doing that anyway.
yeah, that's a 30-year-old with a mid-career professional job and expendable income problems. So like you know,
Yeah, yeah,
it is what it is. Uh, don't hate the player, hate the game. Uh,
yeah.
you know, as Alice said at the beginning of this, I'm also going to be working a shitload overtime this next week. So like
Hmm.
if we may not have a show next week. We normally do have a show every Wednesday. We got the pre-show that starts at about 6 o'clock Eastern time, and then we have fun with it up until the actual show starts at about 7, where it's a lot more structured and a little bit less ranty than than the craziness that we get into in
Little
the
bit less
pre-show.
ranty, a little bit less sort of like. I mean, we do go through into tangents and stuff like that, but like we try
Yeah.
and keep it minimized to a little. To we don't want to, we don't go to the extremes like we do on the pre-show,
Yes.
because this is just us like hanging out, chilling, and talking about things and reacting to you guys talking. So yeah.
Yes. When Eve killed the captain's quarters, I think that was the ultimate red flag of they just seem to be giving up. And if you look at their stuff, like I watched, I still keep an eye on Eve, just because like after you spend, I think I spent about 15 years playing Eve, so like when you spend that
Yeah.
kind of time and money into something, like you really want to see it succeed, but at the same time, right now Eve Online is basically a train wreck, and it's so hard to not watch.
So
Because we've
and
told them everything, like the community has told them everything
yeah.
they need to do to keep doing, to keep moving forward. The problem is that they're just not reinvesting in the game.
Well, they're not reinvesting. So it's there's so many different things. But like coming from somebody who's still got an active sub, obviously, sounding like you have saying like you have an active sub in Eve sounds like you're invested, but like to be completely honest, there are people out there who invest a hell of a lot more than me. Like there are people who invest, who have like 20 or 30 active subs. It's crazy because and the reasoning why is because there's a lot of utility and there's a lot of power that comes with you having like more than one active character doing something at one time, because the ability to multi-box, like use more than one character at any one time is something that is is actual proper gameplay in Eve. And even though I have an active sub, it is mainly down to the fact that there are people in Eve that if they are going to get too rowdy, they need to get brought down a peg or two, and I want to be there when that happens. So that's why I keep a single active sub, so I can just I can jump in two fleets if I need to, like straight away.
Yeah. See, my
But
only
even
thing
then,
is like I have an organization that I don't play Eve anymore. My
yeah,
Eve Online wealth still very much plays
is
the game. Like,
yeah, very
uh,
much does, yes, for
there
sure, for sure.
there are at least 2 trillion isk worth of my money currently playing the game still. That
Yeah, yeah,
It's still very much mine. I am, again, I am not in control of it. It is an I've given it to an organization under a long-standing contract that I get returns off of it over time, and they have consistently paid every month. I have an API that checks it, and
yeah.
I, arguably speaking, I make more money per month than most people that
Yeah,
actually
he
do
makes
log
him.
into the
Yeah,
game.
yeah, he makes more money like not playing the game just by logging in every so often and receiving checks from his
I don't even have to
organization.
log in. They just
There,
automatically
then
transfer money to
okay,
me.
they just send it
Yeah.
over. But like you make more money than most people who actively try and make money in the game. It's kind of
Mhm.
crazy. But like being a little closer to the sort of like to the development even stuff like that is it gets to the point where when you've run out of ways of being able to basically tell the developers where they're going wrong, why they're going wrong, how they can change what they're doing to be better, and even showcase that in certain ways. Um, once you've approached those subjects in talk shows and that kind of thing, like in every conceivable way that you can think of, it starts to get like it gets painful to watch the game kind of start to continually go downhill, continually kind of almost like self-destruct. And at some point you end up basically realizing like I if I carry on, like it kind of almost psychologically hurts because you've spent so long playing that game that it's like it's a part of your life.
Yeah.
It's a documented section of your life. If you play that for
Yeah.
a decade, like it's a section of your life that you kind of wish doesn't get wrecked, right?
Mhm.
And when you see it getting wrecked, it sucks. It really does suck. And at some point you have to rip that band-aid off and just go, like at some point you just as some I think some community developers know this, but the worst thing that can happen to a game is when your dedicated players become apathetic to it. What I mean by that is when they start to not care anymore.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people who I know who were very, very dedicated and very passionate about Eve. And the developers have, you know, just not listened and just carried on going the direction that they want to go with like with complete blinkers on, without a care in the world as to what they're doing with the game, and without a care in the world to the community that's basically telling them to stop. That the community is starting to basically go, you know what, I don't care anymore.
Mhm. Now, here's the other thing. they read like since we're talking about Eve, we got to talk about the Plex prices.
Yeah.
They fucking stepped in it. Like this is the definition of not understanding your own game. Um,
Well,
this is an
it's the
accounting
definition.
move. This is an accounting
It's
move by all
yeah.
measures.
Yes. Yes.
Because of the way that
It's
they count the money basically, and they can't actualize the money on the books until the underlying debt is paid. I.e., when Plex is consumed in game, it is then considered actual money on the account. The reason for that is that they want to make sure that nobody can like that it's no longer in the system. It's made it all the way through, that it can be actualized instead of refunded
yeah,
in
because
some way.
the idea being that like it's a mid step between someone spending money for game time
Yeah.
for
So
for like a subscription time.
yeah. So what they did was the dumbest thing you could possibly do under the circumstances of a diminishing player base, which already has a substantial pressure on Plex prices because there are people that want to play the game. To if you play it well enough, or you make enough money, you can pay for the game uh, in just in-game cash. Like you transfer
Hmm.
ISK, you
Hmm.
buy Plex from people, and like that's that's how you
You do
can
think
play for
yeah,
free.
you do
And
things in game.
some of us
Yeah.
are wealthy enough in game that like we can just do that all the time. The problem is that when there is so much pressure on the market, that is not the time to do something like announce on Twitter, and only on Twitter, not an in-game announcement of any kind, or through any other normal method, that you are going to reduce the price or the total number of Plex to sub per month um, for a limited duration,
Yeah,
which
well,
effectively
they dropped it
wiped
by
the
40.
Plex market.
They dropped it by 40%, and that was after that after they've had like, big Plex sales.
Mhm.
After they basically gone, guys, get a whole bunch of Plex, etc., etc. We're doing money all from Plex, so you can get more Plex for your money, etc., etc. And from a very simplistic point of view, it sounds like that is a really cool thing for a company to do, right? You're getting more, come and get more, more game time for your money. Oh, and then right after that, by the way, we're dropping the amount of money dropping the amount of in-game money that you need to get a month worth of game time. So the amount of Plex that you bought is going to stretch even further, etc., etc. That sounds good, right? The unfortunate thing is that because there is a very complex market in game with this, and this isn't like a New World where you got like separate markets on every single server. Like this is a single server that is has interconnected servers all around, but they have like a single market for the entire game, right? So if you change that market, it affects everybody, and everybody who is pitching in affects it for everybody else, right? The cost, because this is the thing, like you can purchase Plex like from out of game and bring it in game. You can buy it from the developer and bring it in game, and that'll be at a set price depending on what the developer kind of decides for that, right? But a lot of people buy it in game because they can't, because there's a lot of people who play EVE Online don't have like the authorized kind of payment schemes that CCP prefers you to use to buy Plex. And when you don't have that, you have to buy in game, right? When the Plex, when they did all of this stuff, basically the prices of Plex skyrocketed because basically people realized that the value of those Plexes, the single Plex like item, is worth a lot more, because if you cut the amount of Plex that is required for game time, it means that the value of each one of those increases. So that's what happened. The markets just went straight up.
Mm-hmm.
Like it literally almost looks like a cliff face.
Mm-hmm.
And
And it's
so the
because you got
people,
people in game who are like me. Like
yeah,
I'm
like
far from the only one that is an Eve trillionaire. Like,
Yeah, people will buy Plex but just because they know that it's going to go up in price, and they will sell that Plex later on. But there are people out there who like want to play the game, but they can't actually buy Plex from CCP because the payment options are not available to them in certain ways because they're on different countries, in different continents, etc., that kind of thing. So the only option is to go and buy it in game. Well, it's just like almost I don't know, I can't remember quite on how far it's gone, but like it increased like between 50 and 100%.
it's more than
And
100%. It's,
more than 100%?
yeah.
I haven't checked it. I haven't checked it
Like
lately. I haven't checked it
the
lately though.
when so to give perspective on this, this is the definition of inflation. When I started
Yeah,
playing Eve, the price of Plex was, and this was per month. So I'm going to do this per month. I know it's split at one point to be, instead of one Plex, it was 500 Plex per month. So like,
yeah,
bear with me a minute here. When I started playing, 1 month of gameplay, if you were to buy it in game with in game cash from the market, cost you 150 million ISK. 150 million with an M.
yeah.
That is not a large number. That
No,
is
no,
like, that is what a battleship goes for at this point.
yeah.
You know, I mean, maybe battle cruiser, because they fucked the market on those things too. But uh,
150
from,
million back then. Yeah,
yeah,
back then when it was the cost of basically a battleship.
yeah. Now, when I left Eve, it cost about 1.5 to 2 uh, billion ISK per month with a B.
Yeah, yeah.
That is a lot more. Now, last week, and I've got to look in another server for the actual chart here. Uh,
Yeah, like this hasn't been a gradual ramp up. Like if it was a very gradual ramp up, it wouldn't have been this high by now. Like, and to be completely honest, when you're talking about inflation, and when you're talking about like basically like a game space and a shared market, like inflation is going to happen, but like you want to keep it just slow and steady. Like you don't want it going completely gangbusters, like up and down everywhere. So, you want to keep it nice and steady and a slow increase because there's no it's natural that there is going to be that because there's going to be more people playing for longer and they're going to be grinding money into the system. There's going to be some sort of sinks for all of that stuff that's being created and that's being brought into the game, but like ultimately there's never as many sinks as there are faucets in a game, so you will always get a degree of inflation. It's just you need to make sure that it isn't going completely nuts.
looks like it hit about 3.5 billion
Yeah,
for 1 month, which I can tell you, that's not what I make per month not playing. But again, like, I have 2 trillion and I'm getting percentage based returns on that money. So like, I'm different than most people. Like your average ratting super carrier that got nerfed into the ground is making 100 million uh an hour.
yeah.
100 million an hour.
And that's a lot of that is a lot of capital investment into something that makes you 100 million now. Just so you know, like,
Um,
you're
Now, I would
talking
I
10
would
to
never
20, 10,
suggest
between 20 to 30 billion
yeah,
invested in that one ship.
yeah. So I would never suggest that that Amazon Games ever do anything with subscriptions. Um,
No, no.
mainly because, and I'm looking at Amazon based on the trends of the parent company. Um, and here's why I don't think that they would ever tie a single game that they make to a subscription. Um, Other than like battle pass type stuff, or like, if you played Lost Ark, like Aura, um like
Hmm.
there are premium currencies and there are like premium modes that are stuff like that. I don't think they'll ever really like they've toyed around with the idea in the past of like a battle pass for New World, but it hasn't gone anywhere. I don't think it's going to go anywhere because Amazon doesn't do things the same way most places do. And I want to describe this, and this will probably be the last topic of the pre-show before we get into things. Uh,
Okay.
Amazon as a company enters a market, funds a fledgling startup until they figure it out, build market share, understand the space, and then make money off of it. So the perfect example of this is Amazon Fresh. So you can get your groceries from Amazon in a lot of places. Um, Amazon Fresh does not make them a lot of money. It really doesn't. And the reason that Amazon Fresh exists, and knowing that they're losing money at it, is that they're building market share. They're taking market share from Instacart. They're taking market share from all of these grocery delivery services, from even the grocery stores. They're taking margin share from them. And eventually, you get to the point where you have the market share necessary to do the bulk sale required to actually make money in that space. Your logistics chains and everything else just work at that point. The economy of scale has to happen before then. And this is the same play that they do in every single space that Amazon goes into. Every single one of them. They know that they're going to lose money for 5 to 10 years on something. And for instance, Amazon Games has not actually lost money. For like, I know that seems like a shockingly weird thing to say, because of the player base numbers in New World, but they haven't lost money. Like, they're doing fine. They make money off of microtransactions. They do that. They're doing actually quite well on Lost Ark. There's a lot of money being made between the two games that they have out. They also have other games in development. We've talked about this in the past.
Yeah.
And they know that it is going to take a while to build the market share, build the trust, build the understand the space well enough, make the mistakes, and learn from them, and grow. One of those mistakes we've seen them back away from, publicly, but also kind of quietly, is Lumberyard.
Mhm.
Lumberyard is the kind of bespoke engine that they used initially for New World. It's no longer the Lumberyard engine; it's now the Azoth engine because there's a whole bunch of changes they made to it, and it really warrants being its own thing now. But they learned their lesson. We don't want to make a bespoke engine; it's too much work. So the next game, and they've already announced this, is going to work on Unreal 5. Because why would we create our own engine? We learned our lesson the first time. It didn't work. It's so much easier to find coders that can work on Unreal 5 than it is to find people who know how to work on an old version of the Cry engine that's been bastardized, 16 ways, and yeah. So they're learning those lessons. They're at that phase of learning the lessons. New World had a surprisingly large launch. Like, I don't think anybody expected them to break 1 million. I don't think anybody expected them to even get close to 1 million. Because we had the old launch date, and we only topped out at around 60,000. On like the we're not going to launch, but we're going to give you like a preview of where we're at. And that was like 60,000. Like that wasn't a huge number. So there was this thought of, well, how do we do this? How do we uh, how do we really look at this from a perspective of how big New World's going to get? No one's estimate was in the 900,000 concurrent user range.
Yeah, no,
Not a
not at all.
single person talking about the game sat there and went, there will be 900,000 people playing this game. That is a bonkers crazy thing to say. Based on everything out there, all of the industry norms, all of the statistics, everything that we had going in, the highest estimate that almost anybody had was in the 250,000 range. And that was considered really optimistic. So when almost 1 million concurrent users logged in to play on launch, that was kind of a fuck me moment. Like for those of us that had been in the community for so long, that were so used to like, okay, the player base is maybe going to get in the 90s, maybe 100,000, optimistically, you know, from the perspective of Amazon making money, if you hit anywhere near 1 million concurrent users, that is 1 million times a bare minimum of 30 for the game. Now, those are just the people logged in at that time. And if you want to go through and do the math and all of that, I've done the math before, I can't remember what the number is, but you have to account for total hours played at that time, with the average gamer playing 8 hours per week.
Yeah.
Accounting for all of that time played on launch week, you're looking at least 25 to 30 million copies sold. And that number becomes a very large number. Now, on top of that, you got the shop, you got cosmetics, you got other things. So take 25 million times that by we'll call it $35, just to split the difference between people who bought the deluxe versus the normal edition. And then on top of that, pull in an X value for microtransactions past the initial cost.
Yeah.
It's a comically large number. And then Lost Ark comes along. And Lost Ark knocks it out of the fucking park again. Like, complete unknown, like, we'd seen the game, we'd seen the gameplay, like, it was this Korean MMO, like, there's really, it was like, this might catch on, it might not, there was some buzz around it, but, like, it also didn't seem like it was gonna be that big. And then it was like 1.2 million concurrent users for a technically free-to-play game. But if anybody knows anything about microtransactions in a free-to-play game, the good skins, the variety of speed me up type stuff are all sold in the market. Of course, it's a Korean game. They cut back on a shitload of that, but even then, like, they made just a comical amount of money on that.
Well, they also had their was it how long was it, like they had like a 2 or 3 day kind of head start thing that people had if they actually purchased like packs and stuff for it.
I know I bought $100 pack before the game even came out.
Yeah.
Like, because I wanted to. I wanted the founders pack. I wanted the horse. Is what it is.
Yeah, so
I'll admit it.
yeah.
Now I do also think that New World cosmetics are too expensive. I think that they need to 50 to 75% of the price would make them much more competitive for purchase. And there are things like camp skins that are just comically overpriced that should be like 25% of the cost. Like, they need to cut those down. I was also we're going to talk about the skins that come out in the show, because there's a skin that's conveniently missing that I've asked for more time than is comfortable. Like, literally the last 3 years, I've said directly to developers that they need to have a Roman Legionnaire skin, and
Yeah, you're
Alas,
hoping
they
that.
finally released Brimstone Sands, and they come out with a skin pack. And where the fuck are the Romans?
Well, you know what? I think there is a pack that's going to be coming a little later on that might help you there because, like, it very much looks like it is a very singularly themed pack. At least this one, right? And
Yeah,
I imagine there's probably going to be another one sometime soon.
yeah.
That's what I'm
I
imagining
just
anyway.
want my Roman skin, like
I know. You've been asking for it for
yeah.
fucking ages.
So with that, we're gonna go
Anyway.
through our intro video, and then we're gonna actually start up the normal show. We'll
Hmm.
see you guys on the other side of that, and yeah, let's roll it. All right, welcome everybody to the NWO show. I got a couple of things I need to take off the screen. Let's go to play
Aha.
Star
Right. Yes.
Citizen.
Oh, yes.
If you want to play Star
Yep.
Citizen, at the bottom of the screen, there's a link to our referral code. We've changed up the model for the show. The actual model for the show used to be all New World. We then added
Hmm.
in Lost Ark and Star Citizen section. Star Citizen has a referral code; the other two don't. So, like, that's where we used to have it. So we're going to nix that. If you are interested, the code just disappeared. Play the VOD and yeah, starts you off with a little extra cash. But that said, the new we're going back to only New World on the NWO show itself. We may live
Yep.
stream other games on this channel at various points, but when it comes to Wednesday nights at 6 to 7 o'clock, we have the pre-show. 7 o'clock, we actually have the NWO show itself. So if you like hanging out with us, talking about a variety of different things, we love doing it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why we're
And
here.
really, to be honest, the show kind of like the length of the show really is dependent on how much news we have to come and give to you, and how much time we have to talk to you as such. Like so, yeah.
Yes. Additionally, for those that don't know, we unfortunately did not have a show last week. We might not have one next week. This is all related to, unfortunately, my job is very busy right now, being hurricane season, work emergency management, so it kind of is what it is. Can't do anything about it. It's just a very busy time with Florida getting hit by a hurricane. And I'm going to take a moment. We're not doing an official fundraiser or anything at the moment, but if you are interested in assisting in disaster relief, please consider donating to the Red Cross. It's definitely going to be needed. So,
Yeah.
seeing as we missed last week, there is a lot of news to cover.
Yes. Yes. I think we need to like hit some of the big kind of things, right? Like some of the big things that have happened over the last, like, rather than the absolute up to date sort of stuff right now. I think we need to kind of go and hit sort of like some of the big things, big ticket kind of things that happened over the last like week and a half, 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
And so I think we should start with October 18th, shouldn't we?
Yes. So October
Yeah.
18th, it is official. Brimstone Sands will launch October 18th.
Mm-hmm.
Commence
Yeah.
craziness. Like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is what we've been talking about basically since launch. Where we saw some of the initial leaks about Brimstone Sands. And like I'm pretty pumped for this. The player base is pumped for this. there's been a almost 200% return in players from the all-time lows in the 16,000 concurrent range to now topping in the normals at and in on a Tuesday, which is normally a very, very low population day, 40,000 at peak, which is awesome. It's
Yeah.
great to see
So
people coming back
yeah. So October 18th. Yeah. So
and
I
staying
mean, we
as
we
well.
we know that like everybody's been clawing at the walls, wondering when it's gonna like get here. Now you guys know.
Mhm.
You know, obviously pending any kind of disasters, any kind of monumental screw ups and stuff like that. It'll be opening up on the 18th of October. Um, yeah, to
Exactly.
all of you in Eternum, all of you Eternums, Eterni. I don't know what you want to call yourselves, but yeah,
Yeah.
players.
So this is of course, huge news. Like this is gonna like ground the community into a timeline, and everybody is going to start coming back, furiously preparing for uh the new content, obviously. You know, so
Yeah.
if you're not level 60 yet, AGS are boosting you for the next 3 full weeks with a 50% increase in XP gain.
Oh yes.
I believe this is player like character XP, so like getting to
Yeah.
level
Yeah.
60. So there's going to be a ton of
Yeah.
people out there who are like, yeah, but I'm already level 60. What do I get? You have to play the game,
Well, I mean,
which is fun in itself.
yeah,
So work
this
on your
yeah.
work on your gypsum grind. You've got a ways to go if you just hit 60 anyways.
Yeah,
You know,
but the idea of this XP boost is to get all those people who haven't got to 60, as fast as faster, essentially, like 50% faster, in order for them to, be able to participate and partake in, the Brimstone Sands experience and content that's coming up in October 18th. So, yeah.
so although I would recommend making it to the end of the storyline, I don't believe that it is required. I believe that the quest will show up to get the stuff. I think it's like a burn proof coating or whatever that you need to
Yeah,
get into
yeah.
Brimstone Sands. It'll show up when you're
It's
level 60. So
it's through a few quests that you need to kind of do in order to actually do it. Like,
yes.
we might even put together a video just to showcase, what you need to do in order to actually get to those, and where to look essentially. So, there are already some some videos out there, showcasing you how to do it. But like, I think our own take on that particular how to is it would be fine.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other big kicker here is if you are just hitting level 60, it has recently gotten a lot easier to level up your expertise. From
Yes.
the 510 to the 600 mark, you're using orbs to increase that. Those orbs now drop in a variety of different ways, places, and the bumps happen much more frequently and oftentimes from much larger numbers than they used to. When I was leveling my character, the average bump was 2. 2. That means for each you needed 45 bumps.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it was a pain in the ass. Nowadays, the average bump is 5.
That ain't bad.
With oftentimes, and I've seen one person receive 9 on a bump. So
That's
like
pretty
you
nice.
can bump really quickly up with specific equipment through gypsum and things like completing OPR, where the first 2 OPR matches you'll get the ruby gypsum, and you'll get the OPR crate, which now has like a 98% chance of bumping one of your pieces of equipment.
Yeah,
So
and all of the
in 2
gypsum basically
matches you get
just
4 bumps.
yeah, all of the gypsum basically allows you to be able to direct expertise bumps to a very specific area,
Mhm.
right? You get to choose which area that goes to. You only get to do it I think there's a maximum that you get to do it per day, something like that.
Yes,
Um,
each type of gypsum will only drop a certain amount of times for the various activities that it does every
yeah,
day. That resets every
yeah,
day at I believe 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, from there are other ways to bump your XP. So,
Hmm.
you can join in on world tours where these, I think, are probably one of the most fun things you can do, with your
They're,
pants
they're
on in New
definitely
World,
the
at least,
they're definitely the most accessible things to do because, like,
yeah,
so long as you're keeping up with the group, a lot of the a lot of locations, a lot of the things that you're attacking and fighting, like, aren't can't really handle like 200, 300 level 60s, like, flailing at it. So, even if you felt like, I've gone into this particular area, this particular elite area before, and I just got absolutely destroyed the first time. Like, yeah, maybe you yourself or you with, like, two or three other people, that kind of thing. But, like, it's a different ball game entirely when you have 200 people just, like, just amassing, like, through this whole place. So,
yes.
your ability to be able to open those expert elite chests, that kind of thing, to get because every single time pretty much, I think every single time you open an elite chest, you get an expertise bump of some form, some kind. So
Almost every time.
almost
It's
every time.
you're gonna do pretty well. Basically, how world tours work is you go from elite zone to elite zone. You normally start in mines up north, then you go to Merkgard,
Yeah,
then you all fast travel to Ebonskill and do the temples there. Then bounce
you go
over to
to
Malevolence. I should point this out on the map.
yeah
Over
in
to
in
Malevolence, and
yeah
then
in
down to Pools, and then
Hey,
to the
I tell you what,
Sirens to wrap it up.
I'll tell you who does have a decent map linked on their site is imdb.info.
Yes, absolutely. If you're looking for where all of these things actually are, and you don't have
Oh no,
a
not
handy
I.
map here, make sure to go check out nwdb.info, as they have
Yes,
a great map on their website. They also are
nwdb.info, not
wonderful partners
imdb.
of this stream. Um,
Yep.
and yeah, so with
Yep.
that, you know, so World Tours
I
is a
s-
great way of increasing your score. Another great way of
yeah.
doing it is just running expeditions on repeat. Like
Yeah.
just go in, run regular expeditions. You don't have to run the mutated ones if you don't want to. And every single elite chest and elite boss in there, so the gold bosses, named bosses basically, are all going to have the chance of dropping an expertise bump. So you will have a sizable, I believe, like Garden of Genesis. I think the average is like 6 bumps every time you run it, and you can
Yeah.
run it all day, pretty much.
Yeah.
Um, but
There
yeah,
are eventual cooldowns that you'll hit at some point, but, like, most people don't.
so once you hit gear score 600, is it still worth doing chest runs in World Tours? Yes, because you can also from those elite chests get umbral shards, which will help you once you hit that 600 ceiling. You're changing from expertise to umbral shards. It's
Yeah.
two different systems, and getting those umbral shards will allow you to continue to level. It also allows you to continue to get uh, resources that you're going to need for refining and other things, and it's a
Hmm.
really good gold income source. Some of the bosses that you run through, if they're doing the world tour correctly, they'll kill all the bosses, giving some drop chances of some really good equipment. Because like killing Malevolence, for instance, there are some really good drops from him. And some of the wolves in that area may or may not drop some of the weaponsmithing equipment. You know, which can be worth 25 to 30,000 gold if you get lucky. So
You got to be in it to win it.
yeah. Now from there, the other side of this is that why should I continue my crafting and other things like that? You're going to want to continue to push your attributes, like your it's attributes the wrong word. Your post
Your
200 skills,
yeah,
um, so that you can continue to
trade
get
skills.
the trade skill. There's a word I can't remember what the word is, but there's chests you
Um,
get for achieving the different the different levels within the trade skill after 200. It's like mastery, like it starts with an A.
Yeah, I know.
I can't remember it though.
It's on the tip of my tongue as
Aptitude.
well.
Aptitude. There we go.
Aptitude. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
There it is.
There we
Yeah.
go.
So those chests, one of them will drop gypsum. Continue gypsum farming after you hit 600. It is
Mm.
actually really important. And I'm going to give you a token's worth of advice on how to go about things in the short term and then the long term. In the short term, you want to level your equipment to about 615, and then hold there until post Brimstone Sands launch. And then it's going
Yeah.
to get a lot cheaper to go from there to 625. Or one thing that you need to know is that the higher level item that you're using gypsum to try and bump, if you have a 625 item, always use gypsum on that item. It'll give you the most amount of umbral shards because it's 625. Compared to, if you're 605 or 610 or 615, it'll give less. But basically, in the ballpark of about 610, 615, like I feel like you can accidentally make it into 615 without using a ton of them. I'm sure like the more optimal is like 610, but like I feel like you're accidentally going to make it to 615 because the lower levels up until like I want to say like 618, 619, all of a sudden it starts getting a lot harder under the current setup. And then,
Yeah.
as said in chat, Leroy Jenkins bringing up that, like, simply put, once you hit that point, stop, because it's going to change. And there's a ton of YouTube videos out there that talk about this. Right now, it's exponential. You need a ton
Yeah.
to get
You
those
guys.
last few levels. In the future, it's going to shift and be much more lateral, where it's going to cost more for those entry levels, and it's just going to cost a consistent amount as you go across. So it still goes up a little bit, but like you're not paying 4,000, or I forget what the exact number is. You're not paying a comical amount for those last couple of levels, versus you're going to be paying like 600. So
Yeah.
like
I mean,
it's so much better.
these techniques to optimize, like how you kind of like how you're progressing, it is essentially how to MMO essentially.
Yes.
This is how to MMO. Like you're optimizing your ability, your capacity, you're optimizing your way through the leveling process, and the leveling process at the moment is a lot better when it comes to using those shards and your expertise level to get to 610 and then stop there. Yeah, because after that, after the patch is when it gets a lot easier, and you'll have a lot more progression with a lot less shards.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
just running into some other things. Apparently, there's currently a bug. I'm gonna cover this. I'll throw this in the notes for later. Sorry.
oh, okay,
Um.
okay.
So, what else happened here? We got another like huge thing that happened that actually went relatively uncelebrated. You know,
I mean, really?
I mean, relative. Like there was no major event. There was, I mean, there was a dev
Oh,
video, but
I
like,
guess, I guess
you
that,
know,
I guess
like
in
there
that
was
kind of
no
sense, yeah.
like. I think the community was expecting a more of a fiasco,
Fanfare.
fanfare,
Yeah.
like some sort of uh triumph of like we made it. We're of course talking about uh New World turning 1 year old since launch. They made it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
1 year. Alive and
One
well,
full
still
year.
kicking despite the rumors. You know uh
Despite the people who said that January that there was going to be that AGS were going to drop a whole bunch of things onto the onto the in-game cash shop that was basically going to make it pay to win, right? What was
yes,
that? Was that
I
pay
would
to
like
win
to
thing?
call
Like,
out I
oh
would like
yeah,
to call out two specific people
yeah,
on
yeah.
stream, and I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for at least one of these. The first, because he triggered this shitstorm, is Kira
Mm-hmm.
TV. Kira TV, I think now it would be appropriate for you to eat your shoe, because you not only were you wrong, but there is still no pay to win a year later. Uh, and you were adamant that AGS was going to be the worst company in the world and that they were going to be pay to win as soon as they could find a way to shoehorn it into the game.
Hmm.
If anybody wants to bring them that note, um, be
Please, please,
more than happy
please.
to hear any response from them.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, you
Please,
know,
please clip that moment and send it to him.
yes,
If you feel inclined to.
from there, and this is the one we're probably going to get the hate mail for. Asmongold played his video on stream. Asmongold, of course,
Hmm.
being a much larger streamer, also laid into that, and was like, "Oh, New World is going to have, pay to win. They need to fight against it." The reality is, it doesn't. You know, and I'm not a fan of people promoting controversy. And it's not often that I call out specific people because, like, frankly, that's not really what we're about. We don't like being controversy ourselves, but sometimes people need to get, you know, not put on blast, but like
Well,
identified
sometimes
for just like,
some
hey, your prediction was wrong. Simply put, wasn't
so
added.
sometimes people who drive hate, like because there's a lot what a lot of those content creators were doing were driving hate. They were making predictions.
Mm-hmm.
They were reading between the lines of what was being said to basically imply that something that as we've seen, never came to fruition with New World.
Yes.
Um, and instead of them basically having to be pressured to come out and apologize, they're allowed to skulk away and pretend that their predictions and all the hate and all the kind of controversy and all the kind of vitriol that they stirred up, was couldn't be forgotten and forgiven.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's talk about the difference between New World and Lost Ark for a second, because I like the comment in chat here. Uh,
Hmm.
so one, New World was actually pretty successful. In terms of money, it is not negative in cash. Um,
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about this in the pre-show, but like it's actually in a really good place. With the player base coming back and with the new expansion and expected kind of like peak that's going to happen here shortly. With the Brimstone Sands launch, like there's going to be even more money coming in. That said, that's not the direction I want to take. The thing I want to talk about is the difference between New World and Lost Ark. Lost Ark, if you've seen the Korean version of the game, that is the definition of pay to win.
Yeah.
Like, it is microtransaction hell. It is free to play. Free to play. Keeping in mind
Free
that
to play.
that is a model in itself. Free to
Hmm.
play means that they want to get the money out of you in other ways.
Yeah, they want
Versus,
you to experience it, but then they
yeah,
want to draw you into getting on the fast track by paying money.
yes. Now, the difference between New World and Lost Ark is that free to play microtransactions are everything. They have to drive microtransactions to make money.
Yeah.
Um, Now they made a ton of money with the I wouldn't call them microtransactions, but the like founders packs, because you could basically buy all of them and get all of those bonuses uh, up front, and it was like actually like it was crazy. Uh, and there was 500,000 people playing concurrently when that was special exclusive access for the people that had bought those packs. So like that we know that sold really well.
Yeah.
Uh, but you compare that against New World being box price plus MTX store. Uh, and if you've ever been out looking, and there's any reason to have like a shitload of camps in one area, you'll realize just how many people have bought camp skins.
Yeah.
Like, now that there's been the ones from a couple from the summer medley fair, it's a little bit less easy to see. But you can still see the people that have bought skins for their camps. I know I have. Like, there's a ton of others. In terms of like actual skins, they sell pretty well, despite the fact that the player base has basically been screaming um, about why the hell can't we dye these? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
let me dye the skin so that I can make it match with the other ones.
I have so many issues with the whole the dying kind of system that they have in
Yeah.
the game right now, and it's just it irks me so much because it could be a good money maker for them, like in a very micro transaction way, like working on the economies of scale, which basically means like you're not asking people to fork out a ton of money for them, but like you get it so that it is ubiquitous, that people want to do it all the time, and that they're
Yeah.
fine with paying a few cents here, there, and everywhere in order to do it, right?
So let's boil this down to like why I don't think New World is ever going to have a sub or never going to have like these other things, like, and I don't think there's an incentive for them to hit the pay to win button, um, for a very long time. Like, the reason for this is multiple folds. The first is they want to build market share. Obviously, with the game dropping off, it would have been inappropriate for them to try and squeeze little money out of a small player base. Like, it's just not worth it. It's not worth the hassle. It's not worth the fight. There are better ways to make money. On top of that, you're already getting 30 to 40 bucks off of every new player. Just boom, sold the game to them. You've already got box price, which is is great. Like, you compared to
Mm-hmm.
compared to Lost Ark, where you're going to have players who play the entire game from start to finish and never give you a penny and are proud about it, which is kind of a weird thing. Like, being totally honest, like, just think about this for a second. Like, you somebody sits there and says, "Hey, I'm going to develop this thing. If you like it, support us." And then somebody plays it all the way through, plays every little instance of it, and does everything all the way to the end, and it's like, "Nah, fuck you, I ain't giving you a penny." Like, that's kind of
Like,
weird. Like,
thank you for all of your time, all of your
yeah,
work, all of your effort, all of the all of the the toil that you spent creating all of this. But nah, you know,
now the other side
it's
of this is the
it's a really
audacity
terrible
to
thing.
ask a lot of money for the box price, which,
Mm.
when New World announced its box price for the deluxe edition being 40 bucks, I think most people went, "How the fuck did you what?" Like, I think everybody was assuming 60 bucks, 70 bucks, 80 bucks. EA announced the other week that their new standard price for a game is 80. Like, that's their
That's
starting. That's
nuts.
not the deluxe edition. That's, you buy in the game. Like, we make premium shit apparently. Like, somebody
EA?
should
What?
probably tell EA about Battlefield, but
I mean, somebody should tell EA about EA. Like, at this particular point, it's a case of like, have you ever Googled yourself? Have you ever looked up EA in on Wikipedia? Have you ever looked at Urban Dictionary definitions of what EA is and Electronic Arts and all that kind of stuff? Like, you guys should probably do that before you start claiming that your standard issue price for games is going to be $80.
yeah. No, there are some games out there that are worth 80 bucks. But, it's kind of that, like, there's a spectrum here. There's the free to play, but we're going to have to sacrifice some things in order to make some money. Like, anytime there's free to play, it's a hard thing to do unless you truly have economy of scale. So, like, when I refer to economy of scale, I mean, like, you have to have a fucking large player base. So, like, League
Yeah,
of Legends doesn't sell any kind of pay to win.
yeah.
So, how do they get away with that? They have a comically large player base that, you throw a skin up for the new champion, it will sell like fucking, you if there was a limited quantity of them, they'd be gone instantly. Thank God
Hmm.
digital, it's digital, so that's not a thing unless you're playing Star Citizen or something. But, you know, uh, I digress. Anyways,
It's not going to
Star
that.
Citizen has a whole different issue. Like, we're not going to touch that in this show, but that's a whole different problem. Um, the the funny thing is you move from this, you know, free to play model to the subscription model, which is the next one up in terms of like entry costs. So like
Yeah.
picture games like EVE Online, where it really only costs you, you know, $10 to try it for a month or $15 to try it for a month. They're gonna get a shitload more money out of you, you know, uh, over the years because you got to keep paying that sub. Then you have the box price plus microtransactions. And this is where like things go off the rails because you'll have games that are $80 that also have comically expensive microtransactions. And it's like, what happened here? You know, it seems, you know, it's weird. You know, so there's kind of this disconnect on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, needless to say, I don't think Amazon is going to change their strategy. Not for a long time until they're comfortable that, you know, comfortable with doing something. And I think that they're going to be more reactive than other, you know, companies are, uh, in terms of if the player base pitches a fit about something, they're probably not going to go down that road.
Yeah.
Because again, as I said in the pre-show, and I'll say it again, Amazon, especially in the early stages of entering a new market, doesn't care about the money as much as they care about the market share.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's that. We'll wrap that one up nicely. Uh, we'll hit fresh start servers. Let's talk about the
Yeah.
freshest of the fresh.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
You know, uh, where are we in the notes? Down here, right?
I mean, you went off on a tangent for
Yep.
the after New World is 1 year old. So
Oh yeah, we totally missed
yeah.
all this, didn't we?
You
Yep.
you did. You went off on a crazy ass tangent.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, New World turned 1. They gave us a whole bunch of really cool statistics as well with that, to kind of return back to the topic we were talking about before a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
There have been 569.1 million hours played collectively.
Yeah. Thanks to we got some additional stats with regards to that in actual fact. And I do believe that that Jurius calculated that is 64,965 years of gameplay, which is effectively close to, I think, 2 or maybe 3 times the duration of mankind.
Exactly.
Yeah. Of essentially of you know, humans.
There we go. That's the right one.
or at least maybe not humans, but I think it's like documented history. I think the absolute furthest documented piece of history of humans is like 30,000 years ago, something like that. So it's like twice the duration of that, which is nuts. But there's a bigger number than that in terms of trees cut down.
Oh yeah, 12.4 billion trees. Oh no, that's billion minutes.
No. That's the 6.3 billion.
See, this is why I need this up and not this. But they're on the same screen, so.
I mean, I don't know whether you got 12 from, but like, I guess from something else.
So 6.3 billion trees have been cut down.
Yes,
sorry, I skipped ahead and I was looking for a large number on the infographic.
Oh, okay. Well, there's one larger one, which is the amount of murdered NPCs, because you guys collectively out there have murdered 17.3 billion NPCs.
Yeah, that's a lot of NPCs.
Which is damn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, of course, some of this is going to be a little bit of botting behavior, you know, and they actually admitted to this in the dev video. But you know, a lot of this is actually normal players, so like that's actually pretty impressive. Yeah. So like I
Yep.
thought this kind of stuff was really cool. You know, Syndicate being
Hmm.
the most popular, popular faction, Windsward being the most popular place to own a house, the most contested settlements. How Weaver's Fen made it on the list is, like what's going on in Weaver's
Strangely, it
Fen
wasn't
that
Cutlass
like
Keys.
uh, you know
Don't know why.
Everfall makes sense because money is a thing, but Weaver's Fen, like what? You know, uh, most popular trade skills in order: cooking. I mean, I feel like cooking's kind of a gimme. Armoring,
Hmm.
Arcana, jewel crafting, engineering, furnishing, and weaponsmithing. In that order. I thought that was also very interesting. Uh, and
Yeah.
during the summer medley fair, there were two. My bad. There were 42,893,637 fish caught. That's a lot of fucking fish, guys. Like,
That's a fair amount of fish.
that's a lot of fucking fish. And yet, fish oil is still expensive. Would have thought. Like,
How? How is this possible?
who's using all the damn fish oil? Like,
I know, right? God.
yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, yeah, one of the other really cool ones, chat picked up on this, is the average play session is only 110 minutes,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is actually a lot. Like, what's funny is there's a group of people out there who are like, that's a lot higher, that's a lot lower than I thought it would be. And then you get the
Hmm.
people out there who are like, that's a lot higher than I thought it would be. And it's like,
Yep. That
kind of
works
looking
about
at
out.
both
That
of them
works out.
like, do you play too much? Do you not play enough? Like, I do feel like that's about the same amount of time I play on a session, because I mean that's you're closing in on that 2 hour range, which is enough time to get all of your a good chunk of your gypsum farming done.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know,
No, that makes a fair bit of sense, and of a night, I think if you're efficient with your time, you probably can eke out like between 1.5 to 2 hours to do something, and
yes,
I think spending 110 minutes playing New World is a viable thing to be able to do per night.
yes. So let's keep things rolling. There is currently a Twitch drop happening right now. If you haven't
Yes,
noticed, make sure to tell your friends to watch at least 4 hours of a participating channel. You can get
this
it by
channel is a
watching this channel
participating
for
channel,
one.
by the way.
And once you complete those 4 hours, it'll show up in your Twitch inventory. You then
Yep.
have to claim it from there. Um, so make sure to
If
do
if
that.
you've
It's
been
the
watching,
Death's
if you've been
Beckoning set,
watching,
which is actually pretty nice.
yeah, if you've been watching since the start of the since the show kind of like came onto air, you would have had about 40% of the 4 hours. As we are a participating channel.
Mhm.
Yep.
So that's there. The New World update 1.6.7 dropped yesterday on October 4th.
Yep.
There hasn't been any major reported issues with that. It was kind of a smaller update. Um, the most significant items listed on there is that they
There's
adjusted the
there was
in-game penalty messages to provide additional clarity and context.
Yes, that is actually huge, to be completely honest, because there's a lot of people who get really, who have been on the wrong side of that, and it's been extremely frustrating for them to actually like get some clarity and context as to quite what they did to get banned or to get timed out or to get sort of I'm not sure. I haven't had it happen to me, so I don't know whether you actually get like saying you've been banned, whether you've been suspended, whether you've been timed out or whatever. But like you know at least going forward, there's going to be additional clarity and additional sort of context for why people get moderated out of the game in some way, shape, or form. So hopefully that is beneficial. Um, hopefully it's not just hopefully the clarity and context is because you've been bad.
Yeah.
because that isn't clarity or context. Hopefully, there's actually significant amounts of clarity and context for people to actually, be able to understand what happened.
And the other thing here is that this probably isn't going to reduce the number of people who are going to just claim, oh, I'm innocent. I'm 100% innocent. Like,
Well, yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
I mean, I don't
yeah,
recommend it, but rock up to any prison and ask inmates whether they're innocent or not, and I
yeah,
bet you 100% of them will say that they are.
yeah. As they say in
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption, or as Red's character in Shawshank Redemption says, didn't you know we're all innocent in here? Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Simply put, like, there are and there's a reason that we like have a rule on the subreddit for um removing posts around like I was unfairly banned posts.
Yeah.
And this is a controversial topic because there are people who have been banned and didn't do anything. You know, uh,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
I've asked questions about this, and I've asked for statistics on my own account. And if you ask for your information from Amazon, you can see certain numbers. Um, if you download your Amazon data, you can actually get access to a lot of this. For instance, I can tell you that I have received more than 400 reports on my account. Keeping in mind, I don't talk in chat in game
Yeah. Yeah.
for a reason. I also have never been banned. And it's not because I'm special, it's not because I'm a streamer, it's not because of any of that. It's because none of them are actually warranted to receive a ban.
Hmm.
Um, Now, there are times when people are just being a shit. You've seen global chat, like
Yeah.
seriously, anybody who's been in and seen the global chat on a server, you can sit there and be like, yeah, I can understand why several of these people would get banned for just about anything they say. You know, like you log in and there's like a political craziness going on about US politics, and it is not civil. It is not not a nice conversation at all. And it's like, one of these people is probably going to get banned, maybe both.
I've
You know,
never gotten global chat
I just mute
I
global
don't know.
chat, like I refuse.
I don't see, and like obviously there's some talk in stream chat about it, like as to the what MMO global chats are generally like, and I always kind of look at it and kind of go like, why would you want to open up like somewhat anonymized place where somebody can just stream of consciousness their thoughts into people's eyeballs? Like it's not a
Mm,
good thing. Like, you can make private chats, as long as as long as, ATS have the ability to, to log all of those chats and to be able to view all of those chats and be able to moderate them if they need to be moderated. But
um,
like, I just feel like, global MMO chats, um, you know, are just they never seem to be a good idea.
yeah.
I get
Um,
global messaging and stuff like that from like devs and what have you. If there's something interesting happening, or if they want to, bring everybody's attention about to something, that's fair enough. But
um,
specialist chats, yes. Certain area chats, yeah, maybe. But global, nah,
um,
never seen
so
use.
the other thing is on the botting side of things. So like they have been reasonably good at banning bots. It got better for a while. The challenge with banning bots is that it's an arms race.
Yeah,
Um, and it is not a particularly easy battle to win because when you're developing a bot, your objective is to not be detected or not be detected.
yeah,
So you can do things that are abnormal. Insert in randomness into the activities that you're doing so that you're not constantly doing identical things over and over again, but you're doing them in
mm,
a way that is slightly different, to make it appear more human. And that
Yeah.
is a huge challenge. Um, and like I'm of the mindset that they really need to hire in-game moderators that can go around and look at these characters, because from you got to think about it from a data perspective, because going in and trying to ban individual bots is a losing proposition. Um, it is very, like, from a data perspective, it's very difficult to identify the difference between a player and a bot. Visually, when you're walking around and you see a character that is level 45, uh, no faction, has a name that is just random letters, uh, and is stopping at resource nodes that don't exist anymore because they've already been harvested,
Yeah.
visually,
Or the
something's fucked. Like,
yeah.
it's,
Yeah, you know that there's something wrong with that. You know that, like, there's, why would we be running to that specific spot? Like,
yeah,
and there's scenarios, especially, especially like, certain harvesting nodes just, look like absolute blank, spaces until there's actually until the node is actually there to harvest. When you see those characters literally run, and as soon as they hit that node, they're literally like ding and ping to a different place straight away. It's like, that there's something up there.
now the thing is, these things are smart. Like, they can detect where they are on the map, they can detect which direction they need to go, they can also detect if they're being blocked.
Hmm.
So if they input, hold the input key for forward, and it's not letting them go forward, it may try and move around a little bit. And if it can't find a direction where it can make meaningful progress, you'll notice that some of these bots, especially when you like trap them with tents, uh,
They'll
after
fast
a few
travel.
minutes, they'll fast travel back to town because that's
Hmm.
what they're coded to do. And this is
Yeah.
this is what makes things very difficult. And I can tell you, as somebody, like, I'll go around collecting shit all the time. Like, like, if there's one thing New World does phenomenally well, it's resource collection. It's a very enjoyable experience. Um,
Yeah.
but like, I don't talk in global. I don't talk to people in game, and there is a strong reason for that. In that I don't I don't want to get banned. You know, uh, and I know that that sounds silly. Like, I shouldn't fear saying something, but like, you know, shit happens. You know, I'm
Yeah.
I'm, I'm not I'm not a particularly toxic person. I generally don't I don't talk in global because the only thing it's going to do is, one, let people know which server I'm on, and two, they're going to start PMing me about random bullshit. Like,
Hmm.
and it's going, then my entire day becomes, why did my post get pulled off of Reddit? You know,
Yeah. Or they'll start trying to conversationally bait you into saying something.
mhm. you know, for those that don't know, I'm one of the mods over on the Reddit. Um, so
But yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, those I think we've, very um uh succinctly. Actually, no, not succinctly at all. I think we've covered the changes to
yeah, yeah. All of the other ones are very
the,
minor and very
the
highly
penalty
specific
messages.
stuff. But like, the
Yeah,
penalty
like,
messages being like, that's absolutely vital. We, like, the player base has been asking for that forever.
yeah,
Just to
it,
know, like, what they were banned for. Like, give them a little bit of something to be like,
mm,
you were banned for, insert the comment that you were reported for.
yeah,
Something like that. Like, I feel like that's a bare minimum of being like, okay, I was banned for abusive chat. This is what you said. Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I also think that they should include other systems than just like blanket bans. For instance, like, if instead of banning somebody for abusive chat, with some exceptions, huge
mm,
caveat there, because there are some things that you should never say, that if you say in a global chat, you're gone. There's no recovery from. But I think that there should be an option to basically just perma-mute the person, and they no
yeah.
longer have access to chat channels and or voice chat in game. Like, I think
Oh,
that's a
for sure. Yeah,
reasonable
like
approach to it.
whether it's voice chat or text chat, like I think then there needs to be some granularity with, with the moderation options available, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
let's
the
talk
other
about
kind
the
of
Egyptian
things.
skins.
Oh, we're going all the way there already. All right. Okay, fair enough.
That's the next thing in the line.
That's not the
I'm
next thing on
not
the
skipping
line.
ahead, damn it. That's exactly where
You
we
you
were
are
in the
skipping.
notes.
You are skipping ahead
That
because
was
like
the next
there were
thing in
issues
the line.
preventing region transfers because people made PTR characters, and like that for whatever reason was
Oh yeah.
confusing people when they were making characters and they
That's
weren't
why.
being allowed. Like that's something that has actually been changed and fixed, so people can actually
Oh,
see,
I was reading
or
down here for
either
some
can
reason.
see or are now able to create characters even though they have characters on PTR. So that's fixed, which is nice. And for whatever reason, they removed the in-game Twitch connection button. I don't know why they did that, but you can still link your accounts and claim your Twitch drops at New World's actual website. So
API
don't
calls
worry
are a
about that.
bitch. That's why.
Apparently that's the case.
Yep. Simply
But
put, like, so when New World launched, there was a lot of like auto tagging that was
mhm.
planned for New World. That
Oh
basically you'd be
yeah,
able to
yeah,
identify like what level they were and all of those things. That is
yeah,
a lot to track, and that is a lot to
yeah.
transfer over for really no reward.
Because it was basically auto tagging people's Twitch channels with where they were, what their level was, and all that
Yes,
kind of stuff, right?
yes, and
Yeah.
that's a lot of stuff. And of course, basically since launch, it's been bugged and useless. Uh,
So
because
yeah,
it was a good idea, but like in practice, it was like a royal pain in the
good
ass.
good idea, but implemented really poorly.
Yes.
In terms of the other update, like there was the 1.6.6 one that dropped. There were a few things in there that there was a bug that basically prevented you from finishing barnacles and black powder, which was fixed, which was great. There was a medley fair fishing pole rewards thing that has now been fixed, and um, a queue issue, which is good because in the run up to Brimstone, you want to fix queue issues, and it was a queue issue where basically new characters would sometimes be placed into a standby queue that um, even though there was ample capacity for the whichever server that they were going to accommodate them. So that was fixed as well. There was a fast travel issue that would occasionally fail, which I think a lot of people experienced. It wasn't massively game breaking, but it was annoying, if anything.
Mhm.
And yeah, some speculative fixes for achievements and titles. Yeah. The Egyptian stuff, as
So
you
the
would
Egyptian
wanted to go
stuff.
into, yes.
Yes. Small caveat: there appears to be an issue where there's a different version of one of the skins that doesn't appear to be the same. Um,
Was it the
as
jars?
basically not the same as announced. Um,
Oh, okay.
the individual has stated, "I purchased the Bassett Courage store skin, but it's not the same as the one depicted in the image. Any idea, AGS, if this is a bug or expected fix?" Um, they post their picture, and what's interesting is it looks like it's a of mix of skins. A little bit of the
Interesting.
Anubian conquest, a little bit of the might of the sands one. So like there might be something a little off on that. Um,
Okay.
so keep in mind there might be a little bug. I would assume we'll see a fix to this relatively quickly.
Yeah,
Because it's
they'll
really
get on
just
it for sure.
there might just be like a improper one thing is linked incorrectly to the wrong place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I genuinely thought that the bow skin was really cool, like using the sort of like the King Cobra
yes.
effect was really cool. The like Pharaoh's mummy hand for the Void Gauntlet was actually a really
That
cool
one that one's
implementation
pretty
as
cool.
well. Yeah, those are my
Instrument
two
skins
favorites.
also look pretty baller. The
Hmm.
tool skins are kind of, in my opinion, kind of meh, but to each their own. There's some housing items if
Hmm.
you're interested in the kind of Egyptian theme.
Yeah.
There's also some camp skins, which are like I think they look pretty cool.
Hmm. I think there's also the emote, the table flip, so
Yes.
especially is the one that I think
The
people are
emotes on
gonna
this
enjoy.
are actually pretty baller because the first one is mic drop, which, you know, is what it is. Uh, like a knighting, I knight thee. Uh, there's a vanity one where they pull up a mirror and look at themselves, uh, and then table flip. And the important thing with this is that it comes with this nice tidbit of information. This emote does a small amount of damage, i.e., finisher. Yes, yes. Put somebody
Oh.
into a down state and just table flip them to death. Yes,
That would be
I
funny.
appreciate that. They've
You see,
also added
the
in a
thing
number of
is,
dyes, and I think the forest green is probably the most interesting of them. So,
yeah.
but that's just me.
I think the thing is like unless they already have this idea in mind, I think the more emotes they put into the game, the more emotes that cover various different things, the more likely it is that you will have people basically trying to make machinimas,
Hmm.
and using all of the various different emotes to be able to sort of like, get their characters to act out, certain things. I mean, we've already kind of
Yes.
had like very limited machinimas to some degree,
Mhm.
but it can only
Um,
get better.
so obviously, like we're looking forward to a lot of these. I personally think the Anubis set's really cool. Um, all the sets are kind of interesting. Um, you know, yeah.
I mean,
So
they did open up new servers, mate. So
yeah, they have opened up new
there
servers.
is.
They haven't opened the fresh start servers, and there's a reason for that. Is that obviously there's a new player experience coming out with Brimstone Sands, and that's it makes more sense to wait and have the higher retention of players from that new experience than
Yeah,
to start up brand new fresh start servers now, and kind of push them through the old system.
yeah,
I know it sounds weird, like but like right now is more about the people that are planning to play the end game content that's coming with Brimstone Sands, and the preparation
hmm
to make sure that everybody has the ability to play Brimstone Sands. And past that, then we're
yeah,
going to see fresh start servers. Like the soonest that you'll see fresh start sooners, in my opinion, is going to be the 18th. The
yeah,
soonest. Like I would not get your hopes up for any time sooner than that. We're going to get more information on either tomorrow or Friday. Um,
fingers crossed.
from the
Fingers
developers,
crossed.
there
So
is an announcement
yeah,
planned. There is a video in development, and
hmm
they will be talking about fresh start servers and the plan for them. Um, you know,
well, thank you very
so
much for
yeah.
that. I haven't seen that anywhere, but all right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
Yeah.
other so the other big thing has been dropped in the last week or two has been a September dev update, dev
Yes.
video, in actual fact. So with regards to that, I think the sort of like the highlight or the headline kind of thing on that whole dev update is we're getting mounts, right?
Yes. We're getting mounts.
Yeah,
It's in development. It's a thing.
yeah, but we're also getting ultimates.
We are also getting ultimates. That is very much a thing too.
And we're also getting large group rates.
Yes.
Yes.
None of these things are going to happen shortly. So, you know,
Well, the ultimates were
just
getting
be
a sort
known
of.
that they're a thing that they want to they're in the process of conceptualizing and making sure that it's going to be a thing later on, but it is
Yeah.
things that they want to do. And when we
Yeah.
talk about raids, we're talking about like 20-man type content, PvE
Yeah.
that is very difficult. Not like invasions, but like expeditions on steroids.
Yeah.
You know, um, so
So
like
that's
there's
going to be
there's some
cool.
really cool stuff coming. Like mounts, I think is a very like controversial topic for some reason. And like I think a lot of people kind of were like, oh, they're not going to go down that road because there's so much fast travel in the game that there's no reason to have mounts. Um, but they have returned back to what they said at the beginning when the mount question came up from creators back then, and that the
Yeah.
world's just not big enough yet.
Now, I don't
And
know about I don't know how many of you sort of listening have watched like us a lot, but like we were postulating that there was going to be mounts for quite some time, and there were like clues um, with various different things that they've actually developed for the game. Like for example, what I think, at least in my mind, right, one of the more sort of stark evidence, like one of the more stark kind of pieces of evidence that mounts were sort of definitely being either thought about or kind of considered to be put into the game, is when we got the increased speed on roads. You remember that?
yes, I
And
think that's going to stay.
I think that's going to stay. And I think that might actually end up becoming part and parcel of maybe a routing system for
Yes.
mounts. Because the thing is, if you're going to make a routing system, you need to somehow have a system that determines whether you're on a road or whether you're not on a road. And if you have that system that kind of determines whether you're going faster or not because you're on a road or not, then you've already got a system there for the game to determine where roads are. You just need to be able to determine, locations, and then route the player from one location to another using those roads. And then you have basically an auto routing sort of system for mounts. That's where my head was at when we got that increased speed on road kind of system. And we've been kind of postulating that there was going to be mounts into the game at some point, but we had no idea when.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now they've also said in the past that they don't want to do this in some like cookie cutter way. They want to do it in a way that fits the lore, that fits fits the feel of the game, and it's a meaningful, impactful system. So
yeah,
don't expect this to be pocket mounts. Um, I would fully expect mount death and stuff like that to be a thing because there's a lore reason for them to come back. You
yeah.
know,
I expect mounts to be more akin to sort of like rust horses, that kind of thing. Um, than your World of Warcraft mounts that just appear and disappear,
mhm.
something like
So
that.
that is definitely going to be a thing. They have not given a timeline for this, but yeah.
Hmm.
Um, from
But one of
there,
the other things that they've been doing, and we talked about it as well, and we've mentioned it, and people have asked about it in chat, is they AGS have been dropping hints here, there, and everywhere about fresh start servers.
yes,
And we've said there's an announcement coming up. They haven't specifically said exactly what that announcement is, but I think everybody can read between the lines that it's probably something to do with fresh start servers, or at least is in part has something to do with fresh start servers.
we know that it has fresh service because they've said it like 3 or 4 times in the forums. There's more info about fresh start servers coming this week. It's only so many days
Oh,
left in
okay. Well,
this
there you
week.
go. All
Like
right then. All right
you
then.
know it,
I didn't see that.
and they've even for those that don't follow Keddy on Twitter, one of the developers that's consistently in the developer videos. Simply put, she posted, and you can see that they're in development of the video as well because they were in the studio.
Ah, okay.
So that's where I know that from. And on top of that, like the developers have been on the forums a number of times this week stating there's more information coming soon. The reason they haven't released a specific date or a specific information yet is that it's part of a larger plan. And people need to understand that this is part of a larger plan. There's a lot that is about to
Mm-hmm.
happen, and it is a very complex situation. So, for those that have been living under a rock the last 2 months, the player base is starting to come back. We were down, for
Yes.
instance, at peak concurrent players of about 16,000 players at peak. That is a small number.
It
Now,
is. Oh, at that time, it was a very worrying number.
yes. Now we are in the ballpark, and today we had 40,000 at peak on a Tuesday. That means a lot of players are coming back. Why are they
Yeah.
coming back? Well, hey, things are changed. The game has changed. It's gotten a lot better. But also, there's this thing called Brimstone Sands coming up. And anybody who knows anything about MMO content knows that you should probably prepare for that expansion. You might need to level your character. You might want to get some expertise. You might want to, like level a new weapon or something. When that expansion drops, there is going to be a comical amount of people that don't keep up with New World that are like, oh, hey, I bought that game back in the day. Let's go give it another go. And they're going to need to expand the number of available servers that do allow transfers to allow for the number of people that are either coming back or going to buy the game for the first time with the Brimstone Sands release.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not a paid expansion, so there's no bar for re-entry. People are just gonna boom, you're in. Now there are the people that have come back from that 16 to 40,000 increase in player base, and obviously they've had to start up new servers. From there, they're going to have a spike in players. They're going to have to start up new servers for that, but there's also going to be a dramatic interest in fresh start servers. To clarify what a fresh start server is, what the player base is asking for, and all of that, a fresh start server is specifically a server that only allows new character creation and does not allow for server transfers onto that server. Now,
Yeah, very specific.
For instance, what things that it is not. McLeod and I play on Valhalla. Valhalla is a very popular server. It has a queue
we try to
most nights. It has a queue most nights. That said, it's still fun to play there. We've got a lot of friends there and all that. We might be moving off of that server if we really want to play on it, because there's going to be a bunch of people coming back, and it might be beneficial for us to move on to a different server just to be able to play on it, to play that Brimstone Sands content. No new players are going to be starting on our server. It's already full. Like, there's not enough space on our server. Don't come there. So these people that want to play fresh start servers, It doesn't impact us at all. They weren't coming to our server anyways. Now we might go to their server and play on the fresh start, because who doesn't want to relive launch day? And the chaos that is, like, who's going to get what territory? Who's going to be able to earn enough money early game to be able to buy territory, versus like a non-fresh start server where you can just transfer on with all of the money you need, like, and buy all of the territories. Like, you can transfer over with 500,000 gold. You can buy 5 territories right off the break. Like, it's a lot more fun when it's like, okay, we got to get a group together and we all got to grind and we got to do these certain things so that we can make as much money as physically possible, and then we can take a territory. Then we can maybe help our faction get another territory, and maybe we'll help another one, and then you have wars at, like, you have comical wars that happen. Because the siege equipment on settlements is set for level 60s. Like, I literally on our YouTube have a video of me killing 100 plus people in one match. It is comical. Like, repeater turrets are so lethal to low level players. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I gotta find that video and play it in the background. So fresh start servers are very much going to be a thing. That said, I would not expect them before the Brimstone Sands launch. The reason I would not expect them before that launch is the new player experience is changing with the Brimstone Sands launch as well. So there's no incentive for them to push people through the old progression system when the new one is there.
Yeah, and if you've been on the PTR, and if you've been on the PTR and you played like at least even a little bit of the new new sort of like a new player experience, like it's so much better. Like that, like yeah, it would be criminal to put people through the old new player experience. When they're sort of interested in coming back to the game. But but the other thing as well is like it's not just the new player experience. Like they put a lot of investment into a bunch of the sort of mid level kind of progression as well. So
Yes.
if you're not at level 60, essentially, if you're in that kind of grind up to level 60, there is a bunch of new stuff.
Yes. There's a
Coming
bunch of new
in
quests
that
and
update.
all that they're totally worth doing. In preparation for it, you're going to want to make sure you make it through. You don't have to make it through the storyline, but like I'd recommend
No.
you make it through most of the storyline up to where it stops, and then I believe it's going to continue into Brimstone Sands.
Hmm.
There is some quests that'll pop, when you're level 60, that'll basically make it possible for you to get into Brimstone Sands. There's some videos out there. We might make a quick one that basically just shows you where to go for those quests. There are faction specific locations, so not everybody's going to be piling into the same spot, so that kind of spread out a little. You know, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's some other like really cool stuff that they announced. Going back to like this September dev update. Like there really is some really cool stuff here that's coming with Brimstone Sands as well. Let's talk about ultimates, or the heart gems. So basically, the
Okay.
concept of heart gems is a brand new mechanic that is going to be this long cooldown, one time use, pretty much per fight type thing. That is just going to be kind of this ultimate attack, like either whip out a cannon and fire it for a big AoE effect, or gain like stone skin is gain a lot of defensive ability for a short duration. And there's a few other there's a bunch of other, I think there's like 12 of them. So it's really kind of a cool mechanic to add into the game. It'll change up the meta at the high end. We don't know if it's I don't know if it's going to be usable in things like OPR, but that'll be something to watch and see how it might impact those kind of things. From there, they of course announced raids that they're working on them. They know the player base wants them. They're talking about like a large scale PvE type event, different than invasions, that is still complex and still something that they want to make sure that they really build out in a meaningful way. Yeah, I would have quit if this was my first war. Yeah, this is pretty brutal. Repeaters against low level characters. Like this is a stomping right here. And these are actually upgraded repeaters too, because I told the owning company of the territory in my faction, hey, if repeaters are the first thing you upgrade, like absolute first, you're gonna need them for the first war. And they were like, what do you mean? It's like, trust me. So some of the other things the devs kind of admitted to, and kind of advanced as things that they really want to work on. The first thing is that they want to stop doing the like one step forward, two step backs type things, where like they knew that they wanted to get content out to people, but there was so much that had to be done, and they were trying to get stuff fixed, but every time they fixed something, they broke something else. And it was really, they were just trying to do stuff too quickly, and they needed more time for quality control. And I appreciate that they recognize that, and that they want to make sure that this is better. we can see that in the like much longer PTR phases that they're having, um, where we're seeing a lot more of the feedback incorporated before it makes it to the launch version of the game, or to the like live version of the game. I think that's important. And it's a
Yeah.
positive thing to see from the company. From there, they also want to stop the grind and friction to play. Uh, they want to continue uh, complementary gameplay with story-driven content, uh, globally linked settlements. For instance, in terms of like grind and like quality of life type stuff, that was a huge one for them. Removing the expedition orbs was another like crazy good thing to do for the game health. They actually said that there are now like double the expeditions being run than were what was being run before. So like that's a huge win. Uh, and then opening inventory while you run. They actually said that they was
So it's
not a
yeah.
priority initially, and then they turned around and were like, actually, that so many of the player base want this to be a thing. We should do this earlier than we planned.
I mean,
Um,
so the interesting thing is like, as a developer, you have to pick and choose what things you decide to actually, say yes to, regarding the community, right? Like, because I think if you gave the community sort of like carte blanche on, on anything that they wanted to change in the game, kind of thing, you know, like if you just gave them like, how you got three wishes in the game, what do you want? Like, I think many of them would like choose like to have like way more coin, etc., and way more resources and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, that's something that you can't do. So you have to kind of look at ways of appeasing and well, not really appeasing, but sort of like looking at options for quality of life for a player base. And yeah, it seems trivial, but opening your inventory while you're running is something that is actually um, surprisingly good for quality of life. Yeah, like it was like that kind of thing, as well as the globally linked settlement storages. Like you don't realize how much it impacts your kind of like your game, like your session, until you have it, and then you're like, oh my god, this has freed me up to, instead of play inventory management for like 2/3 of my the time that I have to play this game, I can just sort this out in 5 minutes flat, and then get on and play the enjoyable areas of the game. And that's what they're talking about with like stopping the grind and friction to play, is like they want people to be playing the things that they want to enjoy playing in New World, rather than trying to you know struggle through the game mechanics to get to those areas of the game. And that's what they want to stop. They want to stop the grind, stop the friction to get to stop that. That's basically stopping people to playing the game that they want to play. That
yes,
makes a lot of sense. It makes so much sense. It's very logical in that regard.
yes. So from
And
there,
and
one of the things they want to continue doing is updating and solving the queue issues. Like they identified
yeah,
that this is actually, you know, uh, this is actually an issue, and they know that it's an issue. Spinning up new worlds much faster and more dynamically to allow easier shifting to new worlds. Possibly creating new systems that are going to make it a lot easier for players to move between servers,
I mean, I do
especially if
hope
there's a
so.
long queue. They did
Yeah,
state that they're like having a full server is a good thing, and that there is some acceptance of queues, and the max length of a queue that they find as somewhat reasonable for like absolute peak time frame is about a 30-minute queue. That's like the end goal. They don't want it to get any higher than that, because like that's already a lot. Um, so hopefully they start doing stuff to help you know help that, and
yeah,
they do plan on
yeah.
continuing that. They want to continue direct communication with players in as many ways as possible. Scott had an interview where he talked about the numbers of different ways that they interact with the community, from the forums, from some of their tools that they've built to get sentiment analysis from the forums, from Twitter, from the various sources. They've got various groups that they talk with about
Some
balance
of
changes, about other things. Like they actually have a pretty robust information collection system. Um,
yeah.
and they also want to make sure that it's a two-way street. That they're asking questions and actually listening to the answers.
Mm.
And I think
One of the
based on
interesting
like the
things actually.
changes that they've done over the years, I think people should start noticing that they do a really good job of listening to what the players want.
One of the interesting things that I remember Scott saying in an interview, actually, it was an interview. An interview on YouTube. In actual fact, a strange one that like we did cover in one of our episodes. One of the things that he said when it comes to how he goes about like looking sort of dealing with feedback. He kind of said that. If a player or if a customer has spent time putting together feedback, like, and you can tell that they've spent a good chunk of time actually crafting some decent feedback for you, the least you should do, the least you can do, is spend time listening to that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And
that's not
what's
verbatim
interesting
as
is
what he said, but that was basically it.
he also said he focuses on the negative feedback.
Yeah,
Like everybody loves to hear you're doing a great job, but you know you're doing a great job doesn't mean you're going to grow. Like if somebody just wants to like pat your back, that's like it might feel good, but at the same time, like what did you learn?
yeah. You're
So
never
like
learning if you are always winning.
yeah. So really, this becomes more of a situation of like what are we doing wrong? What areas are people running against and realizing that like this isn't ideal. This isn't what we want. This we want improvements in this area or that area. You know, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And one of some of the other things that they said that they wanted to continue is like, investing in the performance, the client performance, the networking performance, the server performance, like the response time that people are getting. Like, they want to still be putting money into growing that the capacity to host large scale fights, complicated kind of mechanics in fights, that kind of thing, like, and not have all of that stuff basically, grind the performance down into the dirt. Like, so they're investing in that performance there. They're investing in the client kind of performance and improving the networking code, improving the network code, like, seeing what they can kind of do and what they can pull out, what's capable of them of putting in order to improve the situation, like, you know, all of that kind of jazz. They want to continue and invest in that regard. So that's always very good to hear. That they're not kind of that they're still clearly thinking about that side of it as well.
yes,
Um, while we're looking at a fight where, you have a lot of people and a lot of things going on, like you want good performance.
yes. Um, they're also interested. Interesting, interesting if they're focused on like the themed events and unique awards and stuff like that. And they actually got a lot out of the player base in terms of feedback on the events. In terms like you look at the winter event, there were parts of it that were like phenomenal.
The
The like
winter event, yeah, for sure.
everybody is talking about certain parts of it, like the meteors. That was a really cool thing. You
It was
know,
a cool thing. It was the thing. I think the thing that like people liked about it was it wasn't you go somewhere and it always happens, or it wasn't you had to be a certain level or do a certain thing in order for it to occur. Like, it was just sort of somewhat random, um, in the world, and it was like a spectacle.
Yes. Um.
Just
So
made
like
the whole. It made sorry, just quickly. It made the environment feel a little bit more alive, a little bit more
yes.
dynamic rather than static, which was great.
Yep. From there they also want to evolve the story, and really like improve the quality, the cinematics, the like the depth of the story, because oftentimes players would make it through to level 60, and unless you were really looking for it, the story's not really being told. Like it's not really being heard. So changing that up and making it a much more immersive experience, making the story something that it would be very hard to miss, um, and not pick up some of the lore. And a lot of people complained that, hey, the you don't really know what the lore is. You don't really know what's going on. Like you just kind of like play through. There's no cinematics, and there was a huge group of people that asked for cinematics. And
It's like you're not drawn into it. That's the
yeah,
thing, right? You're not drawn into it. Like there's a lot of lore there, but like a lot of the lore is very, it's in text form and it's littered around the world, and like, your only real incentive to go to that is because when you go and you click it, like you get XP. Like most people go and collect those things, or go and see them and pick them up or interact with them only really because it gives you XP. A lot of people, aren't really that interested in you know, going and finding the page that you've added to your collection and reading it. Like, so in that kind of sense, like a lot of the lore was really sort of lost in the grind, as it were, right? And it's been missing that kind of capacity to draw people into the story. And from what I've seen on the PTR, like they're definitely hitting that. They're definitely sort of getting that kind of they're definitely working a lot better in terms of drawing people into the storyline. So you know, onwards and upwards, I guess.
and I mean we saw like several months ago we saw information about the the new cinematics, because we were monitoring job postings, and we
Yeah,
saw them
yeah.
hiring cinematic directors and cinematic artists. So like knowing that that's going to be a thing, we've been preparing for that for a while. But it's going to be interesting to see. I know that there's some stuff on the PTR. There's some stuff that they've said is still a surprise, and that they haven't. Not everything on the PTR is everything that we're getting. You know,
Be
It's not
interesting
not everything.
when the yeah, it'll be interesting when the patch notes come out.
Oh yeah. So they also want to make sure that the combat content and the performance relating to large scale combat, it gets better. They want to make sure that the rewards for the variety of different events, they continue to improve the quality and quantity of rewards, and to make sure that it's balanced and that everything feels more rewarding. Um, they want to start adding more solo content, not at the not as a loss to we're gonna stop all development in multiplayer content. They want to make it more applicable to also have um, solo people play the game. You know, um, we'll talk about. Remind me again towards the end of the show about the secret Brimstone quest. There's a big one. We're going to caveat that with it's a huge spoiler. So
I mean, we don't generally tend to like to sort of spoil things as such because, like,
yeah,
people
one
like
one could even say it might even be colossal.
yeah,
Uh,
okay.
the big one. Um, you know,
Anyway, yeah.
its size is quite massive, in terms of groundbreaking, changing to the game. But anyways, I digress. You know, so they want to add some more solo stuff to the main storyline. Basically, make it more compatible with players who don't necessarily want to be in those large groups. Um,
hmm
you know, but they did mention as well that they want to increase things for groups as well. So like raids and stuff like that. More than 5 people. They've heard that feedback loud and clear. Players want raids in the like the 20-man raid type content against PvE. You know,
Yeah.
so from there, they also want to add in horizontal gameplay. So not everything needs to be about progressing to 625. They want to add in heart gems. They want to add in rune glass mechanics. And other varieties of different opportunities within the game to do stuff.
Yeah.
Like Lost Ark is a solid example of this, where like moving up is not always the goal because there is so much content that you can go try this other thing for a while and have fun with that and come back to this other, basically just have more
Yeah.
fun doing a variety of different things. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Rather
have
than just like a
progression
single
in those
track.
different things.
Yeah, rather than just have like a single track of progression, it's just like, they're adding options. Like it's it's like variety.
Um, they also want to start broadening the content types. A New World has more variety in the content, so it's not just kill everything, kill everything, kill everything.
Yeah, I think on that particular kind of thing, they were talking about like, stuff that was much more chilled out, relaxed, something, so basically, so New World can be a more variety kind of game rather than just a game that's all about like hardcore kind of combat and murdering and all that kind of stuff. Like, so there was a variety of different content that different styles of content, which that's fair enough, that's good. Like, um I think we've all kind of been a bit, done the whole sort of like, chill out, just like, going around chopping trees or mining rocks and that kind of stuff, or mining iron or like orichalcum or whatever, but like, but just chilling out and doing that kind of stuff. And they want to sort of find more types of that sort of gameplay to do. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to get to the point where it's like, what's that like um, really super popular game that's kind of like a super chilled out. For whatever reason, I'm thinking Stardew Valley, but it's not Stardew Valley. Something else. Anyway, regardless, um, one of the other kind of things that they want to do is add more ways to, and this is kind of this was the point where like they actually dropped the bombshell as such, because they said they were, they just wanted to add more ways to move rapidly through the world. And that was kind of like the area where they basically said that they were working on mounts, but like qualified it in the sense that this is very early in the development stage. So, people don't expect like mounts to be coming in the next like 2 months or so. It's going to take a while.
Yes. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah. So the other side of this is obviously they've talked about this a number of times. I'm gonna start bouncing through some of these because we've talked about them.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I think
the
a
revamped
lot of
starting
this.
experience with Brimstone Sands is going to be a huge addition to the game. If you haven't had the opportunity yet, you can load it up on the PTR. It is a great
Yeah.
experience. It's infinitely better, and you can tell that they heard the content from the players when they
Yeah.
redeveloped this. The initial feedback that they got was that there was a lot of running around. And it felt like you were constantly running from the middle of Windsward all the way to the north of Everfall and back to deal with the Hermit. That has
Yeah.
totally changed. You know, it's a
Yeah.
much
They
more
added.
linear experience. You don't feel like you're constantly going back to the same places. The new faction headquarters and faction specific missions to kind of like bring you in are much more organic and
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And they kind of add a little bit more of like lore to the different factions, which is
There's a
just
bunch more
wonderful.
in. Yeah, there's a bunch more interesting POIs, points of interest on the map as
Yes.
well. Some with very unique kind of experiences as well. So like, yeah, you
Yes.
yeah, there's a lot of interesting and enjoyable kind of content that they've added to it. So that's
And
great.
of course the changes to Everfall and Windsward. And in terms of
Hmm.
visuals, like they're very different. Very, very, very not Windsward, Everfall and Monarch's Bluff. Monarch's Bluff is
Yeah,
now a massive castle.
it's
Um,
huge. Yeah,
and
you see
one
it
of the
from
bits that
the.
I didn't like about the initial feedback is people were like, "Oh, it's just cookie cutter." They all have kind of the same layout. Well, yeah, but they all have a different feel.
Yeah, the layout might be the same, but the
You know,
feel is very different.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
But
like
now especially sort of Monarch's Bluff,
yeah,
if you when you start on the when you do the new player experience, like at some point when you're kind of getting to that point where you're going to be running up to to Monarch's Bluff, like you see the turrets of the castle in the distance, and it just looks cool. Like it looks it looks like a place it's basically it's one of those sort of moments where it's like I want to go and check that out because that looks cool.
yes. So I'm very much looking forward to those changes. The single player experience changes are actually going to be really cool. And of course, Brimstone Sands. Brand new gigantic zone equivalent to basically 2.5, 3 regions. It's basically the
Hmm.
entire Great Cleave, Shattered Mountain, and uh, most of fuck is it, Angry Earth area.
Oh,
Drawing a
Jesus
blank.
Christ. Eden Grove.
Yes, Eden Grove. Yeah. So like it's a
Yeah.
friggin' huge area. Lots of stuff. It's actually so big that it's got 2 outposts and a settlement. It is a capturable territory. So you can own Brimstone Sands as a company. Whoever owns it is probably going to make a shitload of money because everybody over 60 is going to be hanging out there. Um,
I mean, I'm looking at it on the New World map from that's linked in nwdb.info, and literally you're looking at like an area the size of Shattered Mountain, Great Cleave, and Eden Grove all put together. Like it's massive.
yes. So there's a more to the storyline that's being added in. There are 26 hidden glyphs to discover that may help unlock some powerful items. Uh,
Hmm.
some crazy interesting points of interest in terms of like jump puzzles, ruins, sulfur pools, Roman forts, a giant pyramid. Inside that pyramid includes the new expedition, which is the Ennead, which is going against the Romans, which is phenomenal. Um, you
There's a
know,
huge settlement called New Corsica.
yep, New Corsica is the name of the settlement in the territory. The new like the capitals of each zone are actually getting names. So it's not just like Windsward settlement. So
Oh,
like
that's
there's
nice.
actually
Yeah.
lore behind it and what these places are called and what they do, and so like that's being added in. So there's a lot of really cool stuff on that front. Um, the
Yeah, you're actually getting new NPCs that aren't just like reskins of of other NPCs. Like they have,
mhm.
unique fighting styles. They have unique kind of like attacks and defenses and all that kind of stuff. A bunch of interesting new NPCs to learn the sort of fighting style
Yep.
in order to fight them.
Yep.
So that's gonna be
So
really
they're also
cool.
adding in the heart gems, which we talked about earlier, which are going to be,
Hmm.
upgradable over time, with resources that you pick up, and they're going to be, kind of these like ultimate abilities. There's a variety of them. I encourage you guys to go check them out. They're adding in the greatsword, which
Yeah.
is in and of itself a pretty awesome thing. Um, New weapons are always great. It's got kind of an interesting damage split between strength and dex, so
Yeah. It's a.
it's very versatile, and will
Mhm.
provide some opportunities for people to try out some really interesting combinations. Um, the Inuit expedition. We talked about that a bit. There's variety of different bosses in there. Um, you know,
Yeah,
I'm gonna pause the video
the
on this
interesting
because
thing
this
is,
is wonderful.
yeah, the interesting thing is like the Ennead expedition like has like a really kind of interesting and rich story, like a backstory to it. It's obviously linked to the sort of like the general backstory of the Brimstone Sands, which in itself is kind of has it is in keeping with Eternum, is kind of like subverting established world history. It's sort of essentially Brimstone Sands is meant to be like the landing spot slash the kind of area that like the sort of the forces of Mark Antony and Cleopatra basically landed at and decided to call home. But I'm not going to spoil it beyond that in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of interesting things that occur, and obviously the main story quest line goes through, um, you know, through Brimstone Sands, and yeah, there's some interesting twists and that kind of stuff. So yeah. I think you'd be interested. I think the storyline through it is going to be quite intriguing and interesting for people who like that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Yes.
yep.
You know, and there's a lot to come. I think this is going to be a huge thing. Um, you know, uh, there are going to be other weapons being added over time as well. But we're gonna see what those are. We know that daggers are in the works as well.
Hmm.
They mentioned that directly. Um, there's maybe some kind of new healing weapon possibly in the pipeline, but um, as there's already one strong healing weapon, like I don't know that they're
I mean,
really going to add
there's
another.
there's one specific strong healing weapon, and there's like a tertiary one that's okay-ish in certain scenarios.
Um,
I'm thinking the Void Gauntlet.
um,
Um, but yeah, like I'm just looking back at the video. 87 kills, 166 assists is just absurd. The power of the power of upgraded ballistas in a early game scenario. It's pretty crazy.
yes. So let's we talked a little bit about this earlier. Obviously, the player base is starting to come back. Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna pop the video down here. The player base is
Okay.
starting to come
Okay.
back. The
Hmm.
reality on this is that this is only part of the people coming back. When the 18th hits, it's going to be bonkers insane. Um, we have no idea how many people are going to come back. And this means they need to have a firm plan for additional servers.
Hmm.
We're expecting an announcement either tomorrow or Friday on uh, fresh start servers, which I know everybody's pumped for. Um, that's gonna be a huge one. Like fresh start servers is probably going to bring back just a shitload of people. Like you know, in
Yeah, I expect it
there's no
to.
better way to say it. You know, uh, having discussed this at length already, like simply put, this is going to be a pretty big bump in player base. I want to prep people for the idea that like the player base is going to get really big, but it's going to come back down as well, and that's a normal, healthy thing with the release of new content. That's like relatively consistent across every game. You look at like Destiny 2 is what we were looking at in the pre-show, where you release new content, people play the new content, and then they go, "Great, that was fun. I'll come back when more new stuff comes out." You know, and different people are going to get different amounts of uh, longevity with the content. Some of them are going to be like, "Great, this will keep me satisfied, and I'll keep playing all the way until the next stuff comes out, and I'll still be here." And that'll keep me going. And, then there's going to be people that are like, great, I played it, I beat it, I enjoyed it. I'm gonna go play this other new game, or this other
Yep.
new content. Like Destiny released a new thing. Like I'm gonna go play that for a while, and then I'll come back. And you know, that's the nice thing about not having a subscription, is that you don't really have to worry about that. All of these players can come and go. Um, and the challenge is that from a server side of things, you have to try and find creative ways of balancing that. And I'm sure that they're going to run into some interesting problems with that coming up. Um, but let's talk about one thing that we always hate to talk about, because it means, it's wildly inconvenient when it happens. The old boogeyman of New World has reared its head again, as player-to-player trading was halted again due to, you guessed it, a duplication exploit.
Ah, yes.
It has already been dealt with. Player-to-player trading has returned, so don't fear not. They have banned a ton of people for participating in this.
Hmm.
There are a number of people who have feigned ignorance, and feigned innocence. Oh, I was doing nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Uh, this was also paired with a bug that allowed you to stack trophies for crafting in your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, if you didn't know about what it was doing, then you're like, nobody tries to do that, because you can only have one trophy of each type. And it won't normally let you have multiples of the same type of trophy. Like, for instance, if you have a weaponsmithing trophy, and that weaponsmithing trophy has, you have the major one, you can't also put a minor on there. Um, you know, you only get one of each type. That's the important thing. In each house, notably. Now, how to tell if somebody knew it was an exploit or not? Probably that they did it, because, it's pretty fucking obvious. You went around to all three of your houses and you changed out all of your things just to be able to make sure that you only crafted 600 level gear. Simply put, if you did that, you're an asshole and you deserve to be banned. Like, super easy to track. Identify people who have multiple crafting trophies in the same house. Yeah. Now, it was only unlocked in one of the latest patches. It wasn't a long-standing thing. And, the reality
Oh,
is,
that's true. That's true.
It was not very long before it was reported to the developers, and the developers took swift action. Again, you got to give credit where credit is due. When they get reports of these dupes, they hammer them. They showed
Yeah.
last year that even under the threat of a potential dupe, they stopped all player trading for like 4 days, just to
Well,
identify
yeah.
that, hey, this actually isn't an issue. It's just a
I
visual
mean,
bug. It's not actually creating new items.
that is true. Yeah. But like, halting player trading for 4 days, it is in itself very detrimental. Like,
Yeah, but
I
it's
know
better than
people
letting
who
it go for
I
4 days while you're building a
this
new
this is
a new
this is
patch to fix
true.
it.
This is
You
true,
know,
but I know people who literally walked away from the game because player trading was ceased, and that was the majority of their game. I'm not there to say
yeah,
that. I'm not there saying that, like, well, if that's the majority of the game, they should be playing, more areas of the game. If that's the area of the game that you enjoy, and AGS basically just turned that aspect of the game off for 4 days, like, that is a major, a major problem, a major kind of sticking point for you when it comes to sort of playing the game. And when it comes to keeping with a game, um, being forced not to play it for 4 days is probably going to get you looking at different games and probably playing those games rather than New World. Um, I like the fact that this response to the duping bug and the other kind of stuff was, literally turned around in 16 hours. That is super fast.
Mhm. Now, obviously,
16 hours
like
versus 4 days
having
is
those
like
things
huge
down for a
difference.
while is not ideal, but neither is having to clean up 4 days of duped items transferring through the marketplace and like,
No,
because
you're
at
not
that point
wrong.
people are buying stuff with legitimately earned money, and they're not even aware that there's a problem, you know
Yeah, no, I know.
and
I
cleaning that
get
up
you
from
where
a
you
database perspective is colossally fucked as a
yeah,
yeah.
trying to showcase, trying to figure out like, the illicit items versus the rate versus genuine stuff that people have created or have made in the game, or sort of like, mined or sort of
Mhm.
harvested from the game. Yeah, like especially when it changes hands, like, multiple times. Yeah, it's going to be super difficult.
So on the topic of the because I see it in chat here, one of the big problems is the not ready Amazon game engine. It's referred to as the Azoth engine, which is a rebrand from the Lumberyard engine, which is a rebrand from uh, them buying an older version of the Crytek engine. Um, and yeah, simply put, they've learned that lesson as a studio. And like, if you follow the development of any of the newer games, they haven't announced the actual game itself. They've announced some studios that they're working with, and the the other interesting thing is that they've announced the engines that they plan on using, namely Unreal
Yes,
5. They have
yes,
no desire to continue to use their own engine in new game developments. Uh, Obviously,
but
they're at the point with New World that we're not getting away from the Azoth engine, because like it is what it is.
yeah, it
Like, it
is what
would
it is.
require a full recode to put it into Unreal, and that's not going to happen. You know,
I
like,
mean,
it's
maybe
wishful thinking.
eventually.
It's what should have happened with Eve Online after 20 years, but they never invested the money into it. A year
There's a
into
lot
the
of things,
game's
yeah.
development, you're not going to recode the entire thing so that it works in Unreal 5. Like, that's
Yeah,
something you can
and
do with
it's
Ashes of Creation pre launch. It's not something you can do once the game's out, uh, for at least the first several years.
yeah,
Because the other thing is, like, you're hiring the staff that you hired to work on the original engine, and the staff that are coding New World right now are all, language literate with the Cry engine. They're not
yeah.
language literate necessarily with the Unreal engine. So, there
Although I
is an
would,
element of they need to learn a new engine then,
but
and
the
that
but
comes
I
with
think
its own issues.
I think the other thing is like transplanting one thing to another and being able to translate certain areas or aspects of the engine in from CryEngine to Unreal 5 would be an absolute like horror show.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah. Um, Although I would say that CryEngine, not CryEngine, that Unreal Engine 5 is gonna be on the whole a lot easier to deal with and a lot easier to learn and pick up than CryEngine or even Azoth as it is at the moment. You know, it's moving that over. In the middle, and it's not just moving it over. Like you can't just down tools on New World for 6 months to a year to retool it into Unreal Engine 5, because like people will literally be there going like, the game is literally just stopped for an entire year.
and it also means that all future content development has to be done in the new engine first, which
Yeah,
means like your content pipeline. Like, for those that don't know how this works, many parts of Brimstone Sands were ready at launch. Like, not like Brimstone Sands as a region was not complete, but there were many parts of the Brimstone Sands area that were already feature complete.
yeah,
They might not be functionally complete, but they were feature complete. Um, and they didn't plan on them being in for launch, but there was work being done on Brimstone Sands before launch. That's how long the content pipelines are for game development. When you have these, like, this means that right now, sure, they've got, a ton of people working on Brimstone Sands to get it ready. You've also got people working on shit that's in the pipeline now that we're not going to see until next fall. And it's important to note that, like, the art team can plan out ahead of time like that. They can build assets, they can do those kind of things. They can start building animations that are not, not tied to, some of the stuff that they have to work on right now.
Yeah. I mean,
like,
we've seen some of the art assets that they generated, for in-game NPCs. Like you go up to some of the in-game NPCs and you kind of think like, oh, they're moderately polygoned, right? They have a fairly decent polygon kind of count as such. You go and actually have a look at some of the the full detail kind of polygons models for them. Like I know that there was some ArtStation like images of it, and they are insanely detailed. And the thing is, like, you can have artists basically creating these things in ZBrush and with huge polygon depth, with huge huge kind of like a detail, and then when it comes to sort of porting it into the game, they basically sort of they drop the polygon detail obviously quite a lot, but like they have those assets almost at cinema cinema like cinema level, like cinematographic kind of level, like in terms of
these are what we're
detail and
talking
production.
about.
Yeah.
Like this is
That's the stuff.
This is a character model, that we've seen a long time. We saw a long time ago. This is also a character model. That is damn near photorealistic, but that is also not
a person.
Not a person. That is actually just a generated image. Let's pull up some of the other ones here. Like this is the level of detail that you build the base assets at, and then you have that level of detail for for when you actually go to build cinematics. Like when I initially saw this image, I honest to God thought that the fur on this was real.
Yeah. I genuinely thought
I thought wow, they built like a small model and like took a professional image of it. No, this is actually just a model. Like this is actually just a computer generated model. And what sold it to me that it was actually a computer generated model is that this is the same model, just with the texture pack associated with it for the right colors.
Texture pack and some visual effects like the glowing eyes and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, same model.
So like that's the kind of thing that like the art team is going to be building that far ahead of time.
Advance. Yeah, way in advance.
So like we're literally some of these images you can tell were actually part of the original trailer. For instance, this guy should look familiar from the trailer.
Yeah.
You build him out as an asset first. Maybe a little Isabella action going on. Just in case you were curious what she looks like in like 4K, in the hips. There you go.
The level of detail
but also
on the, like just insane.
Building out like from a conceptual side of things, like what things look like. What are you looking for in a design, and that kind of thing. And if you guys are curious and you want to see some of this stuff, we have an entire section of our Discord that is all of the concept art, all of like the original art in that from the game, from basically when the game came out. We also have the original videos that were up on YouTube that are no longer up on YouTube, with the original vision of the game. So if you're curious what that looked like, they're all on the Discord. Feel free, come in, check them out. You don't have to chat with us if you don't want. But the area on the thing is the Shadow Gallery. It's definitely worth taking a look.
Oh yeah.
Just noticed that the Shadow Gallery only has
Now
February only
now you're
26.
now you're gonna have me concerned.
No, no, we're good. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. All right. Okay. Well,
Maybe
at
we
least
do
there's
have.
that.
Maybe we do have a small. I gotta edit some stuff here. Um.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, moving on in terms of topics, as it were.
Yes.
Um, we had some, yeah, our usual sort of like just quick foray into the forum posts, like what's basically the community is talking about on the forums. Last week there were like basically sort of three, the three largest sort of almost um, busiest topics was essentially well, there was one which was basically talking about the dev update and how it wasn't what people were expecting, wasn't what they were hoping, that there was going to be a lot more into it. The expectation, the community expectation for the dev update and the dev video update and what it was going to include was clearly a lot more than what it actually was. People were let down in that regard. But I think people kind of missed the detail, and I think an hour and a half long video is a fair whack of time for people to check it out. And I think a lot of people actually went and instead of actually watching that hour and a half, they actually went and just found their favorite streamer or content creator with and found essentially the stripped down TLDR version of it, and obviously that comes with a caveat of, you're viewing that dev update through the eyes of somebody else. And as you know, like there was obviously a fair amount of things that were pretty much confirmed in that dev update. Unfortunately, a lot of that kind of stuff was probably things that people who were very switched on to what's going on in New World probably knew about. So probably that kind of stuff probably wasn't for you, but I think everybody was I think everybody was happy that at least mounts was something that they are looking into and eventually going to be coming to the game. How and specifically in what form that comes, it obviously is up in the air. But people were let down to some degree with the dev update because they didn't like it. Interestingly enough, it was more along the lines of people didn't have a date as to when Brimstone Sands was coming out.
Yes. Which the reality is they might not have had a firm date at that point. Like
at that particular point for that particular dev update video, yeah, they didn't. But as you know, if you've been watching the show, we have a date, and that is October 18th. That yes. Came a little while later.
Yes. So one of the things with this is knowing that the release date is the 18th. It also means that information from here on has to be considered timely. So most players will not be looking at New World until very close to, if not the 18th, which means a developer post 2 weeks ahead of time is really not gonna help. Like there's gonna be a lot of like people who prepare based on that information, but like if you release it a month ahead of time, no one's gonna fucking see it. And you want it to be seen within that realm of the hype. And I know that sounds annoying, and that sounds like like, oh well, if they have the information, they should give it to the players right away. It has to be timely, and it also has to be complete. So when we know the player base is going to explode Brimstone Sands, you have to have a plan for server expansion. You have to, if you're going to do fresh start servers, you have to incorporate fresh start servers in the planning for them. And what that means for servers with people like us who have been playing the game the entire time, have fully leveled characters, but also want to go back and try the fresh start server. We don't want to delete our old characters. We just want to, hop over, but we're not going to be in two places at one time. So, there's some planning and planning assumptions that have to be made in that to incorporate both of those things together. Whether it's for the launch of Brimstone Sands or whether it's for later on down the road. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen. But we know I can give a solid guess that it won't be any sooner than the 18th. Like,
yeah, yeah.
For so many reasons, it's not even funny. Now, I agree that it would have been good to have that information, in that video and just delayed the video a couple of weeks. But then it wouldn't have been the September update.
No, yeah, that's true.
Like, it's kind of one of those, like, they would have gotten bitched at if they didn't release an update in September because they release one every month. So they're kind of at like a lose-lose situation of like, we're going to give you information. Here's a bunch of other information. And like, there was a lot actually in there. But what most eyes are on right now is when is Brimstone and when are fresh start servers coming. And that's, that's going to be big.
And obviously, just so you guys like are in the loop, maybe you haven't seen the start of the show, but there is an announcement that there is going to be an announcement of some kind of update to that kind of thing. And I believe Aza said that like there is a forum post out there saying that that there is going to be news about the fresh start servers in that update that is coming soon. TM.
Yep. It is coming this week.
This week. Yep.
From the devs directly. It's coming this week, which means Thursday or Friday. It's probably not gonna. They could do it on Saturday. I know some people like you get towards the end of the month and you hit the 20th and people are like, they said it was coming at the end of this month. This is the end of the month, and it's like there's technically still like 11 days. Like, cool your shit. Like,
and then it's the 11th, and then it's the 31st, and then people are like, it was meant to be coming today, and it's like, well, I mean, technically there is still 4 hours until 0001 of the first of the next month.
Like hold complaints until they actually miss the stated deadline.
But
if they give you a month, they have until the end of the actual calendar, last minute, last second of that month before you have any right to be like, this is bullshit.
I mean, it doesn't inspire confidence when you're at the last hour of the last day of the month and they're about to miss the deadline. But technically, they're still within. But regardless, there were the other kind of post which got a lot of upvotes and a lot of conversation as well was a post basically saying thanking AGS for not giving up on the game, and for developing certain things. It was for the free expansions, for the fresh start servers that are coming, and for the revamped new player experience and stuff like that. You get these kind of ones where where people want to showcase appreciation, even though there is a fair amount of people kind of going, but where's my stuff, where's my dates, all that kind of stuff. So and I think the only one from last week that was kind of large, which we covered a little bit in the conversation when we were talking about people getting banned and the exploits and stuff like that, was somebody posting up a sort of quite lengthy, quite detailed sort of thing of why crafting should not be bannable. And it was all about basically it was all about the trophies. It was all about how
they knew what they were doing was wrong. Like,
but like just giving them a fair shake in terms of what was being said in the actual post was, they were showcasing how, various different pop-ups, various different things in the in-game kind of thing basically says that you have certain trophy slots, but it doesn't tell you certain things about like the limits to them, or that you can only put one of a certain level into them and stuff like that. And that if you've done this unwittingly, you shouldn't get banned. But obviously, there's probably a very few amount of people who unwittingly did end up with certain trophies in certain, a fair few different trophies in certain um, houses that they probably shouldn't have had. But like, I think the large majority of people who did abuse this knew that they were doing it. But it did kind of like showcase that, maybe if you're not meant to be able to do certain things, it should actually say, somewhere in the game.
I mean, here's the thing. There's there's an infinitely long list of things that they would then have to declare you shouldn't be able to do.
I mean,
Think about that. You shouldn't be able to jump over a mountain. You shouldn't be able to, think about it. You shouldn't be able to fly across the map. Like, think about all of the vast quantity of bullshit players will come up with and be like, oh, well, I wasn't in the 4,000 things you listed, so, I'm in the clear. Like, players. Like, if you give them a list, they're going to rules lawyer their way out of it. Like,
I guess that is true.
Like, you could give them a 4,000 thing with the 4,001th being, and other fuckery unannounced, and they'll still be like, well, this doesn't qualify as other fuckery, like, they will find a way. Like, they will
try and rules lawyer. Yeah, I do get you in that regard. Yeah, that is a very, very good point.
Like, as much as I would love a clear set of guidelines and all of that, the problem is that they're not rules, so hard,
they're more guidelines.
Yeah, they're more guidelines and that's how the player base sees things. Like, if you've ever had to deal with banning somebody, their first reaction is, well, everyone else was doing it, why can't I do it? It's like, just because everybody else was doing it doesn't mean that it's good. And it doesn't mean that point.
And it doesn't mean that they're not going to get exactly the same treatment that you're about to get. Like,
like, I'm going to ban them too. Like, you're just the one that I'm replying to, and I'm not going to talk to you about their ban. I say this from a place of experience. Like, I managed the subreddit. You guys know how shitty a place that was for so long. And we've done so much work to make it better. Like, I hope people have noticed that. Like, if is anybody like a regular on the subreddit and like can give me a pulse check on if my efforts have been all in vain? Like,
I mean, I feel like it has, but I'm not a regular on the subreddit, so
like I'm Don Quixote on a mission to civilize at this point. Like,
it's like anybody who touches base on the subreddit, like, does your feel of the subreddit, the r/play new world, does it feel better? Is it? Yeah, it's r/.
A lot less toxic.
Does it feel less toxic now than it did 6 months to a year ago? If it does, and Ashrine seems to say that it does, then then your work has been appreciated, and it is noticeable there.
Yeah. Like, there's another good example. If everyone's jumping off a bridge, doesn't mean you should. It's the classic lemmings. Like, just because one of them leaped over the cliff's edge does not mean that it's a good idea.
If your friend jumped into a fire, does that mean that you should? Like, classic thing.
Like, like, I've heard them all. I've heard it all. Like, there's all kinds of responses that, and I'm sure that there are people out there who were banned, and it was improperly done. Like, I'm positive, I know people that has happened to, that Amazon has come back and said, we're sorry, this wasn't handled correctly. That happens. On the other side,
Yeah.
having been a moderator for several years now, I can tell you that there are a lot of fucking lying scumbags on the internet who want to play on the, oh, I'm innocent, and then you bite into it, and maybe you start sending that information over to a friend who might be able to help, and then they come back and go, yeah, no, that guy definitely deserved it.
I feel like we opened up a particularly
deep wound,
irritating wound
yeah.
for you on this particular subject.
Yeah,
I apologize in advance. I apologize to everybody in that regard.
Yeah, just putting that out there.
Yeah,
it is.
So let's direct the angry energy in a more positive kind of way and talk about Sport Benji.
Oh God. Okay, so we said earlier in the show that we're not a huge fan of like controversy-based content creators. Like,
yeah,
simply put, like, controversy sells. It's one of the reasons why like certain content creators are making the views that they get.
It's why extremism works. It's why when you see things about extremists, the people who hold extreme views, like that kind of stuff gets heard by everybody, because for whatever reason we are drawn to talking about sort of like the things that we've heard that are extreme.
A negative visceral reaction to something,
especially negative,
engages people substantially better than.
I mean, I can tell you why, like, biologically, why this is the case.
Oh yeah.
Like, biologically, as a group, if like going all the way back to Neanderthal kind of times, where you are a small group and there are there is death and disease and like destruction pretty much almost every turn. What happens is that as that small group develops a way of communicating and all that kind of stuff, like, you want to communicate dangers to your group very quickly. Positive things can kind of like take its time to sort of work through the group, but if something is threatening the group, if there's a danger, if there's like something extreme, something very negative that could potentially harm the group, but could potentially harm your community, your little kind of cabal, like, everybody needs to know it, and they need to know it fast. And that's the reason why we're kind of why even now we're kind of hardwired to to talk about the negative kind of things, to talk about the extreme things, and to to share those negative things, those extreme things with each other. That's the reason why.
Now, the thing with this is that oftentimes these, like, especially like fringe elements and the hyper radicalized are often like factually illiterate.
That is a very PC way of saying it.
Yes. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to say it like that either, because, like, functionally speaking, they often go off of bad information, wrong information, or incomplete information. Just enough to make them seem somewhat believable. Maybe they've got a grain of truth in there that we'll use Kira TV as an example, when he was reaming on Amazon for considering considering not RMT, but like considering a pay to win, in his eyes. The reality there is that they weren't. The context was taken out of context and then distorted wildly, and was not actually a plan that they were considering. So, like, but there's just enough of an element of truth where it's like, oh, Amazon's this massive company. They're out to just make money and fuck over the little guy. Like, they're gonna screw this up, and this is gonna be a pay to win monstrosity. see how there's just enough of an element of truth there to be like, yeah, Amazon is a big company. They make a lot of money. Where's that money come from? They're definitely evil.
I've heard of I've heard bad things from
And
people
I've
before
heard
about
bad
Amazon.
things. I've heard about how they treat their warehouse workers. So they must be this guy's got to be right. It fits my preconceptions, and it fits exactly with everything I thought. And all of a sudden they're riled up, and now they're engaging with the content, and now it explodes. This is how they make their views. Swole Benji is no different than this. Swole Benji unfortunately has a reputation now for doing this. And the Reddit thread of this was of his initial video was, I think, the most downvoted thread in the history of the subreddit.
But it did come courtesy of a very
so there's
a very fine user called Trust417.
So there's the duality one, and then there's the actual like YouTube link.
To
his video, right. The YouTube link to his video is the most downvoted thing of all time on subreddit.
Right, yes, okay.
Like I think it has less. It has like a 1% upvote rate.
Jesus Christ,
which is freaking comical, because you can't get that many people to agree with you on anything. But I'm gonna show you guys the image that got posted that got a decent amount of upvotes. On here on the subreddit, and it's kind of the duality of YouTube here. You've got Ginger World Gaming, which I actually really like his content. Like if you guys want to check out a great content creator, does great work, quality videos, factual information. New World, better than you remember, literally right next to New World, worse than you remember, still using the old creator logo. And filled by Swole Benji with a ton of wrong, outdated, and just proof that he's not actually keeping up with the game, and that he's only making a video because he wants a player base to focus on the controversy. With, again, as I showed you, all you need is a small element of truth to get people going, and then you can spoon feed them fucking anything, even if it's nowhere near the truth. Like I won't go into the political ramifications of this, but like, this has been seen and happened a number of times in recent history, and you can read between those lines.
Should be all you need. Yep.
Yes. You should do independent research to find out if somebody is bullshitting you.
Yeah. Don't go off just a single content creator, and don't always choose the negative content creators over
exactly.
Everything. Get a good perspective.
I'm not saying you should look for the content creator either that is only, everything shits rainbows, like you shouldn't look for them either, because they're only going to tell you the positive thing. At the same time, like, you should look for objective opinions. You should do your research, and if somebody's look at something like the player base numbers,
that's
sitting there going, wow, like, if the game is truly dead, then why is the player base coming up from an average, where does this come from? You were down in the 16,000 concurrent viewers. What the hell happened to bring us up here? You know? Like, if the game was dying, why is the player base doubled in size in the last month? It's that.
How about tripled?
Like almost tripled. Like, it's kind of one of these things where it's like, if you do the research, you identify, hey, the game's actually been under really, really good development. They've made really positive changes to the game. They've removed a lot of the grind. The expertise system is so much better than it was. The new player experience coming in Brimstone Sands is going to be amazing. The new content on the PTR is awesome. Like, there's a whole bunch of that stuff, and people are excited because hey, it's not as broken as it was. It's not as broken as it was, and nobody's going to say it's perfect. If anybody ever says any game is perfect, I call bullshit right now. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So
the interesting thing about this, well, no, not about this, but the interesting thing about Chad is Chat mentioned, or Nixon mentioned bots, and we've got a little. I think literally the last thing for the show is actually bot related, which is kind of strange.
Okay, Trombone
Anyway.
Champ might actually be a perfect game, but that's a different story. And the other side of this is that just because a game is dead in the eyes of the masses does not mean that it can't come back. Look at Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was a colossal flop. It was a huge fuck up on a colossal scale, and it now has a million concurrent players.
Yeah, and the one that we always come back to as well is Final Fantasy as well.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 14
had its resurgence like crazy.
People like for some reason Final Fantasy 14 gets this massive pass on like everything that happened until the last like 2 years, where like everything before that is like, oh no, this didn't happen. Like, no, fucking, no. But their launch was fucking atrocious. Like you think New Worlds was bad? Great, Final Fantasy 14 fucking tanked. Like, they made enough money to keep the game in development. They kept a player base long enough to keep it in development, but they are very, very lucky that they were able to pull as much money from their player base as they were able to continue the development of the game. Because when they brought it back, nobody now is going to sit there and be like, Final Fantasy 14 is a bad game. It's not. It's a great game. It's a phenomenal game.
Yeah.
But it took fucking 9 years to get there after launch.
Yeah. Like, we're looking at, and people are looking at New World now as being turned around quite a lot, and that's only been 1 year, and this is from a new game company.
Yeah, give it 9 years, and let's see what it's like in 9 years. Give it the same amount of time to recover, and you bet your ass it's going to recover. And I'm not saying it's all going to come back at one time. Like, we might see a huge spike for Brimstone Sands, but I'm under no illusion to think that all of those people are going to stay. Because shit, I play other games. McLeod plays other games. Every single one of you guys, I'm sure, has another game on your mind that's like, yeah, when the new patch for this comes out, I'm going to go play that for a couple of weeks and then I'll come back. Like, that's how gamers work. Like, it's very rare for you to be loyal to one game. Like Crownbreaker plays a shitload of Destiny, also plays Siege, also plays, like, there's a ton of different games, and that's important, but everybody wants to try that new content, which is great. So I'm just saying, like, never count a game as fully dead until they flip the switch and go, we're not developing this anymore. Like,
I'll let you know. I'll let you know what it looks like when you know that a game is dead, and that's when the devs don't care anymore. So when the devs really don't care about it anymore. Yeah, when the devs don't really care about like whether the game's working or not working, like, that's when you know that, like, it's done.
Yeah, WildStar, like, there's a bunch where, like, you no longer have, like, I would consider a game dead when it no longer has the critical mass to continue playing all of the game loops. And like, what I mean by that is, like, you start having simulation failure. Like, how fun is Rust with no one else? Like, let's say no one is interested in playing on your server on Rust. How fun is it? For the first,
Rust might be a bad one to say.
For the first 5 hours, great. I built my base.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And
I was about to say, like, hours, not really.
I'll wait. Maybe somebody will come. I'll defend.
No, because
No
the next
one.
5 hours. No, because the next 5 hours is you going. Well, I've built the base. Now I'm going to blow up the base.
Yeah.
And then once you've blown up
Yeah.
the base that you built, then you kind of go,
Yeah.
yeah, what's PUBG doing these days?
Yeah. Like you get bored of it and you leave and you go do something else because like you have to be able to play all the gameplay loops. And there were
Yeah.
times where New World was approaching that line where there were some
It was getting
servers.
close.
There were some servers that the server was in edge case failure. Because you were no longer able to pop Outpost Rush, you were no longer able to pop, consistently run many bits of the content.
Yeah.
Like there were servers that were very much approaching that dead space. Like a game that I would point to as dead, but still like the servers are online somehow, is Lost Oasis. Lost Oasis is an all the time PvP, thing. I think it's got an interesting concept. Even the devs have come out and said it's not that fun. Like, that's a hurtful statement. Like that's a self-aware statement, but that's oof. But to give you an idea, what I'm talking about is they have 424 players at peak today.
Yeah.
That's a dead game. 16,000 people playing, that's not dead. You've still, especially when the server cap is 2,000, like you can merge and keep merging. It's not dead until like you cannot do the content.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want I know that that's wishful thinking. Like there's the dead to everybody else, but think about how many people wrote off Cyberpunk. Game's dead. How many people wrote off No Man's Sky? That game's fucking phenomenal now. If you haven't had the chance to try No Man's Sky recently, like it was shit at launch because it did not meet expectations, was not what was promised. But now it's way better. Like way, way, way better. Like honest to God, like if you bought it and you still have it, like give it another go.
Was it Hello Games?
I forget who made it, but there's a lot of games that the development has continued post-launch, and they might not have had the best launch, but they had continued support and they continued to build on things.
Yeah.
And again, there's also games like EA games where like maybe EA can turn around Battlefield 2042. Maybe. It's wishful thinking.
I'm not gonna,
because they really fucked it on that one.
But I'm not going to bet money on that. If anything, I'm going to bet money shorting that they are going to screw it up even more. But
it is EA, so we'll see.
I would rather take that money that I would spend on a new, base game for EA and spend it on shorting than their next game. To be completely honest,
so true.
That'd probably be a better investment.
So to kind of wrap this up and bring us back to the original point on his is if you're gonna get your information from a content creator, make sure that content creator actually knows what they're talking about, is using official sources, and is using current information. Also, go to more than one. There are a number of content creators out there who are not the type to thrive on controversy, who are not the type to do that, and are actually dedicated to getting the player base information that is up to date and analysis that is focused on promoting what is most likely to happen. Like McLeod and I, we can speak with not authority, but like we can speak with a lot of experience about Amazon games because we've been basically around the game and in the community for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
Like it's a long time at this point. We've been running a show about New World for 2 years. Almost 3 at this point. I don't even remember it. Like we're an old show. Like the game has only been out for a year. Yeah, the game's only been out for a year. Like we've been making this show more than double the length of the game's launch, of lifespan. Like that's actually really cool. Like I'd like to think that we can talk about it from that perspective of historically this is what they did in the past and this is why we think that they're going to go in a certain direction. That said,
Yeah.
you should fact check what we say with content creators like Ginger Prime Gaming, Damone
Timon
Kim.
Kim. Yeah, yeah.
Like there's like
Yeah.
I always like Damone Kim is one of my favorites because he has the same kind of like kind of chill vibe,
Yeah.
um, of just like he doesn't get riled up, he doesn't get um, like he's all about making sure people have the right information, um, and that like and that he's willing to correct information that's out there, like straight up. I would highly recommend him. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah. I think the last two items really, like there was a kind of cool Reddit post by um oh Jesus Christ, Kansiko Dev. That was a kind of cool thing. Like it's basically like another quality of life thing. If you've ever kind of had to do settlement inventory management as such, and you've been swapping and changing through the settlements in the drop down menu on the settlement storage, and wondered why it is
why
why
the
it is
names are
ordered
sorted in the
the
way
way
that
that
they
it
are.
is.
Yeah.
It's really confusing. I've yet to figure out what the order is meant to be, but apparently with the upcoming Brimstone Sands update, the menu, the settlement storage menu, has been alphabetically sorted. So huzzah for that!
That's a nice trying to find stuff that's actually really good.
Yeah, yeah. So, and the only other thing is with regards to bots, actually, and it's something that I think I think you're more skeptical about it than me.
I'm
But
way more skeptical about it than you
yeah,
are. Like,
definitely. So yeah, a player may have uncovered a bot network utilizing basically economies of scale to potentially avoid being noticed by AGS. Essentially, you know, um, people assume that like certain actions red flag you to AGS when you're doing things like, huge volume trades and huge like value trades, right? That sort of thing, and large, especially those sorts of things in large quantity as well. Um, this Reddit user Stack Shiny kind of thinks that he may have found like concurrence, like basically similar behavior, but in low values and high frequencies instead. Essentially to try and go under the radar and not get flagged.
it seems to be like what he seems to have
Yeah,
discovered, if true, is that some sort of coin washing system to get the money from one character to a variety of other characters,
just
to
using low value and low
yeah.
amount. Like it's essentially it's like what he seems to think that he's found is like some triggers when it comes to sort of like adding certain certain trading post kind of buy orders, and he seems to think that there's a certain things in certain quantities in certain locations that seem to be a trigger for automated bots, basically for bot kind of bots to come in and basically fill those market orders. And it's a case of like, because this is just a player trying to find it, like the possibilities of him not actually having found it something and he's just seeing coincidences, it is very likely. But the other kind of thing is humans are very good at pattern matching and seeing patterns. Like we see patterns when they're
So
like we're so good at seeing patterns, A's, that we see patterns when there aren't patterns. Like we look up in the clouds and we fucking see, we see things in the clouds which clearly aren't there. They're not meant to be there. Like, we see patterns when
and
there
I
aren't
think
even patterns there.
this is the case of seeing something abstract and trying to make something more than is there, because
Yeah.
there's not enough
Yeah.
data points to make this conclusion.
Yeah,
Like
I
because
think,
there is
and this,
no way to track who bought something
yeah,
and who sold it. Like they basically say, oh well, we saw them buy it, and they've got alts in these territories that they buy the stuff with, and it's like, you know, there are, at any
the
point
thing
in
that,
time, there are 25 people standing outside of the Ebb and Scale market.
yeah,
You want to tell
and
me
it's
for
just a case
certain
of,
who bought what at what time from where? Like,
yeah.
I call bullshit.
I mean, I could understand that, but also
Gonna need
like
some receipts.
yeah, you're definitely going to need some receipts. But like the other kind of thing is, I can also understand people. I can also understand, if you're repeating this, if you're repeating something, if you're repeating a trigger and you're seeing the same behavior again and again and again and again each time, you know, um, there might be something into it. But the only person who's going to be able to tell, like, you know, uh, going to be able to give you a definitive answer to that is AGS.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know, maybe AGS will look into this, maybe they won't, I don't know. But like, hopefully we'll get a kind of a part two to this, or some kind of, word from a dev or two who looked into it or something like that. But it's definitely interesting. It may be a wild goose chase, as A's seems to think. There may be some substance into it. I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting, though.
I I think it's very much like looking at clouds and seeing something that's not there.
It could well be.
But that's not for me to decide. Hopefully, the devs have seen the post and will uh, dig down to see if it is actually happening or not.
Are curious enough to have a look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
that said, I promised a massive spoiler. And at this
Oh,
point,
you
I'm
did,
going to
didn't
give
you?
people a moment to leave if you don't want a massive spoiler about Brimstone Sands. Now's the
Does this
time to
include me?
turn things off if you don't want a massive spoiler. It could be a big one. It's colossal. One could say it might be the largest thing in the game. You know, it actually probably is the largest enemy in the game. So, uh, I saw this earlier. Um, Earlier today, I watched a full video on this, and I was actually really impressed with the amount of work that somebody did in order to actually like identify that this was happening. Um, so I'm going to load up a video by another content creator, and I'm going to post it in chat because I want you guys to go view his stuff. This is actually a big deal. He goes through and actually identifies that a quest line ends abruptly and is unable to be completed. And then looking into some of the PTR information in terms of data mining and stuff like that on the actual or on nwdb.info, where you can look at the PTR data and look up items. There are certain items that pop up and certain abilities that pop up related to the giant sandworm. Now, Cloud, are you disappearing because you don't want to hear about this? Or he's disappearing for other reasons? Um, so now I believe these to be placeholder stats. So caveat that with that. Um, Shana, I'm not even gonna fucking try it. The Devourer. This is the Sandworm, for the record, based on following the quest line in game, and all of that. We do believe that this is going to lead to an actual world boss event that is apparently killable, that is apparently a massive fight, and it is a level 66 Angry Earth boss. And yeah, should have a official confirmation on Fresh Start servers soon. either tomorrow or Friday. So, I would, at this point, they're basically confirmed. Like, the devs wouldn't be teasing people this much if they weren't going to do it. It's really just a matter of when, and I'm sure, some people are going to enjoy the answer to that question more than others. So I would make sure people watch for some of the stuff that's possibly coming with Brimstone Sands here, or might happen a little bit later. But this right here is definitely something to watch based on research that's been done. Basically, giant sandworm. It may kill you, or you may be able to fight it with a massive group, and world boss style. So I'm looking forward to that. If that becomes a thing, great. They've already got it in game. That it's got got some pretty awesome stats. It's got weaknesses, so like that makes me think that it's going to be killable. Because why would you put weaknesses on something that isn't killable? But yeah. So, that said, we are going to wrap up the show. We'll let you guys dig into that. Watch the video linked in chat there. It really is great. We are going to be rating Damone Kim because he's online and he's awesome. So hang with us for a moment as we set up the raid here, and we'll do our outro video as well. So we will see you guys on the other side. As we always love to say, we will see you in the new world, and give Damone Kim all the love from our channel as we raid him as the show ends here.